There was this old Ethan Klein video, and he talked about, it was a story about how he was very poor at the time, living with Hila in LA, and he remembered how he had to put like a bell pepper back because he was so broke. Like, he couldn't afford a bell pepper, and he was very upset by that. Hila, they weren't really making money. I think she was trying to do art stuff, but they had to work jobs regardless of that. And they were having conversation about like, is this YouTube stuff worth pursuing at this point? Like, is it really worth it? And they were in a much worse position than me because I was like, you know, relatively wealthy kid, everything paid for by my parents. They made the case that basically like, well, if we never try, it will never happen.
Oh God, there was this sounds so mean. You and Sneako are very similar. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to episode 7 of Bridges. Today I'm joined by our wonderful guest, TurkeyTom.
Hello. How's it going?
It's going great. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little sleepy.
A little sleepy? A
little bit.
You look like it. But you always look like you're a little sleepy.
I appreciate that. Yeah. You're a nice guy.
Thanks.
No problem. Why do you look like that?
Look like what?
You just look like you look like you just ate a whole toilet bowl of shit.
What are you talking about?
Like, your face is, your smile is just so fucking...
like, I'm trying to be personable.
It's so fucking disingenuous.
It's not disingenuous.
You look like such
I'm excited that you're here on my show, and I'm trying to have like
you just ate like 3 people's shit.
Okay, and you look like you rubbed some in your hair before you came into my show.
Based,
so,
I did.
Yeah.
I'm poop maxing.
Yeah, clearly.
I'm also diaper maxing. That's from chat.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, like when you walked in earlier with that turban on your head and you were like diaper? That was hilarious. That was like so random. I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah, I need to change.
Did you bring stuff to talk about today? Because I didn't do any notes for this episode. So
did you actually do no notes?
No. I have Factorio here, and every time my factory backs up.
I do have stuff we can talk about, but that's not real. You would definitely have notes.
Oh, you think so?
This is your fucking podcast.
You don't know that?
What do you mean I don't know that?
You don't know anything. Jon Snow. Okay. Tom, you're an enigma.
I'm an enigma?
Yeah.
How am I an enigma?
You're young. You're successful.
I am.
How did you get your start YouTubing?
Oh my God.
Who did you watch growing up? Who was like the person that you watched? Were you a secret Keemstar fan? I know you got a little bit of a...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you want the real answer? You want to really go deep on this?
Yeah, I want the real answer on this, okay? I've been watching Dr. K videos all week just to prepare for this one, yeah.
So, I was born in 2002. So, I think when I was 8 is when I really found out YouTube was like a thing. And that was like 2010. And around that time, like the biggest shit on YouTube was like fucking Annoying Orange and like Fred. Yeah.
You got a movie.
He had 3 movies.
Okay, I didn't know that.
3 movies.
My bad. You were probably at the front row seat for all of them, huh?
I was. They were on Nickelodeon. There's Fred. There's Fred 2, Night of the Living Fred. And then I don't know what the third one is called. It might just be Fred 3. Or there might be a Fred 4. There's a lot of Freds. John Cena's in them. He plays his dad.
Okay. Mm-hmm. They were all direct to Nickelodeon? They didn't get to the theaters?
I don't know.
Oh.
But I remember watching them on Nickelodeon and liking them.
Okay.
They're fire.
That's cool.
Anyway. So, yeah, there was that. There was Annoying Orange. There was like Tobuscus and stuff like that. And I liked that stuff because I was like fucking 8 years old. But it wasn't really like super captivating to me. I didn't really care. And then, you know, as time passed, the Let's Players blew up, like PewDiePie and Markiplier and stuff like that. Those guys got big. And the stuff that they were doing was a little more personality driven. And they also like, you probably remember this better than me. There used to be a lot of viral videos. And that would be the only thing you heard of from that person. And there wasn't really like a creator phenomenon yet.
Like literally one-hit wonders, basically.
Always.
Yeah.
But that was
There were like old videos on Ebon. Like I remember there was a guy called like Starter Up Steve who did like the 55 song. You've probably never heard of that. There's a guy that did the illustrating for like the end of the world.
Yeah.
And it's like, and Zenzi missiles. Do you have any idea what Okay. Anyway,
vaguely.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Okay.
But then like, I feel like post 2010, there started to be this era where like you had like SXE Phil, and you had like Shane Dawson, and you had people who were like making consistent careers out of it. Like they had a job, and it was like about putting out consistent content. It wasn't about like what's going to go viral. It was about like what's going to maintain this for longer. And the idea of like being a YouTuber became a thing. And so,
can I ask? I'm curious. First of all, growing up, this is just generational questions. Firstly, do you watch TV at all, or did you ever watch TV? Or it was all just like internet stuff.
I watched a bunch of TV. Yeah.
Okay.
The Cartoon Network.
And then I always hear this thing about, you know, depending on the generation, people want to grow up and be YouTubers. My son says it a lot, but obviously I'm a YouTuber. You didn't have, I guess, any YouTubers in your family. Was this like actually a thing? Like, how old were you when you were like, I want to make YouTube videos and maybe do this as a job? Was this something you felt like in grade school or like in high school, or?
Honestly, it was never a thing I thought would realistically be a job.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that makes sense. I think that's a good expectation to have. I started really posting a lot when I was 14, and then I didn't really expect it to be a job until I was in college, and I was like, this sucks, so I'm just going to try to make it a job. So I did, but I didn't have any expectation. I thought it would always be, like in my videos publicly, I would say like, this will never be my job. This will always be like a side passion. I'm going to like go to college and get a job, because that's what everybody around me was doing. So I didn't have any expectation that it would be a job. I just liked doing it. I liked it.
Can I ask, what was the very first dollar you ever got for content? Was it like a PayPal dono link? Was it AdSense? What was it?
AdSense, yeah. There was a long time on YouTube when I didn't care enough to... I liked using copyrighted music. I think that using a copyrighted song, there's good uncopyrighted music, but using sometimes one song to me is like, you just got to use it. And so I just didn't give a shit. All the videos got claimed. I had like 100,000 subscribers, and I think I don't know if I had even made any money. I remember there was this one paycheck I got in like 2018 that I think was like $1,500 for December. And I was like impressed by that. My parents were like, yeah, that's cool. But it wasn't a thing that was like, this is going to be his job. It was like, we're going to go to school and all that.
It was $1,500.
Yeah.
Damn.
But I mean, that's not...
The difference is, I remember when I was in my early 20s when we started playing professional games, that if you could get like on a team, like a pro team, and your salary would be like $400 a month, it was like unbelievable. You'd like made it.
I come from like a very like affluent, like white, like not stuck up, but like my parents are like the kind where if you ask my mom, what if she's rich, she'd be like, well, we're upper middle class, we're comfortable. Like literally that's something she says.
As you like decide which pool you want to swim in that day, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely like in the highest tax bracket type stuff. So
just curious, if you didn't really want to do it as a job and your parents were kind of like ambivalent or whatever towards it, they didn't care about you posting videos of yourself online and putting it on the internet?
They didn't like it. My dad was kind of indifferent. He was like, oh, it's kind of cool. My mom was like, fuck this. I remember there was this one moment when I was like 15 years old, and I don't remember, but I had failed a math test or something. And my mom was like, this YouTube thing is getting in the way. And I remember being at the family computer, and she was like looking up how to delete a YouTube channel. And I was like, no. And I like unplugged. I had like 500 subscribers, and I unplugged the fucking thing from the wall. She's like, what are you doing? And I was like, don't do this to me. I was so livid. And it wasn't even like I thought it would be a job. I was just obsessed with it. Like I was so obsessed with it, and I still am. But back then, like the ultimate punishment for me, for my parents, was taking away the computer. And I would always find a way to get it back. I remember there was this one time when I think I was 14 or something, and they got a lock on their the door to their room. And their room like divided like half of the upstairs at that time. It was like their room, and then they had like a big walk-in closet, and then they had like an office. And so they put a lock on it, so I couldn't get in. So what I did is I stole all the keys from the lock, every copy of the key, and I rode on my bike out in the middle of the woods, and I threw them as far as I could, so they would never be able to fix it, basically. And they didn't, and the lock went off the door, and I kept using the computer. But I remember I would sit. This is something I've never even said. So my room had like it's like a square. You have like a bed, a desk, and another desk. And my mom would like want me to be doing homework or something. And what I would do is I would sit with my computer behind the desk in a spot she couldn't see me, and I would be on my computer all day. It would be on a laptop on the floor on my fucking knees, which I think fucked up my knees, but I would just be sitting there doing that all day. And if I would hear her coming, and I could hear very well at this point.
Dude, I think it's got to be like a young boy thing. Yeah, you can tell instantly when you hear a step. It's like, that's mom. She's upset, and she's coming like at 15 miles an hour. Like, yeah.
Exactly.
So you're on your computer, yeah?
So I'm on my computer, and I would hear her, and the laptop was supposed to be in her room. And so what I would do is I would fold it, I would slide it under the desk, and I would put a book on top of it, and then I would quickly get in position. I already had all my homework laid out. So I would be like, oh, I'm just studying. And then she would leave, and then I would just go right back to it all day. And that's all I gave a shit about. I did pretty well in school. I think I would have done worse if they hadn't really cracked the books on me, because they were very... they really wanted me to do well. So they made me take like AP classes, and I did pretty well in those.
They were never sophisticated enough to like check your YouTube channel or account to see if you were posting or doing anything? They
would check sometimes, but I think they just assumed if things were going well enough at any point in time that I wasn't really doing enough on it, that it wouldn't be a problem. But then eventually, if I like failed a test or something, or like a grade dropped below like 90, they would be like, what the fuck is going on, Tom? And they'd look at it and they'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? You fucking asshole.
Is your name short for Thomas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like my experience. But I remember going back to the early YouTube days, the first time I really felt like I always liked YouTube. I liked watching like Markiplier, the gaming stuff. But the first time that it really felt like a community to me, which really enticed me, was like 2015, 16 drama days with like Leafy, iDubbz, GradeAUnderA, I Hate Everything. All of those guys, what they were doing was really interesting to me because it was like a community of people where they blew up making videos, some of them making fun of people, some of them talking about their opinions. And then there were these like different stories that would come along and everybody would talk about the story and give their take. And like this guy would respond to this guy and then they get a response here. There would be drama and like some people's careers would get destroyed, which I think is kind of silly looking back to think that happened. But that was the perception, you know, that if one of these big guys made a video about you, your career might be over or something like that.
2015, 16, this is about when you started posting.
This is when I really started posting. Yeah.
Okay.
And the videos were really bad. One of the first videos I made, which is on YouTube somewhere, it was a commentary video about a kid that I went to school with. He had like an anime review channel and I was like, this guy sucks. And then I remember in like the part 1 of the video, I ended it on me drinking like a bleach cocktail with the Tide Pod in it. And then I remember some of the comments, because I had like 10 comments or something. And some of the comments were like, well, he has more subscribers than you, so someone must like him. So what I did to prove scientifically that nobody liked him is I went around the school and I filmed videos of kids being like, this guy sucks. And I had like a 30-person compilation from the school that I put in a YouTube video.
You never got in trouble at school for bullying, or he never showed the video to like a teacher or the principal?
Oh, they did. They did. And I think I was like, that's not me. And they were like, okay. And then they called me back in and they were like, upon further inspection, it seems your face is in the videos. And I was like, I don't know, it's someone else or something. And they couldn't do anything about it because it wasn't on school grounds or something. The video wasn't posted on school grounds.
Oh, because you went to like a public school, or?
Yeah, even though it was filmed there, which doesn't really make sense. But the video was up for a little while and then eventually I deleted it once I was like getting a little better making videos. But
when you were making videos, were you worried that like your parents or like your classmates would see stuff you're posting and think you're a loser, or?
No, I didn't give a shit. But they were looking at it and they did think I was a loser, but I didn't care. I was like, whatever. I don't give a shit.
Did you have like friends?
Yeah, I had a lot of friends. Yeah.
Like in school, were there people that you talked to and that you knew and like you were kind of chill with, or were you like, oh, fuck it, I'm like a child of the internet, I'm in this community? Like, did you have a lot of other people you could talk to, like Leafy and all these people about like in class, or?
We didn't really talk about YouTube stuff as much, maybe a little bit, but I had a group of friends that I had from when I was 8 when I moved to that town until I graduated high school. It was the same like 4 or 5 people. And
did any of them see you getting into the YouTube stuff and like want to be a part of it, or? Yeah,
early on there were a few of us doing YouTube actually. Like I remember freshman year, there was my buddy Ian, he had a YouTube channel, my buddy Isaac. And then there was the kid that I basically bullied. And we would like, at the time we had our own little community. We would like make response videos to each other. Like we would shit on each other. Okay. And I remember early on, I was the guy to shit on. We would go to school and like talk and hang out, and then we'd go home and be like, this guy sucks on like YouTube, which was funny. Okay. And one of my friends, Isaac, I feel like he was actually way more talented and funny than me. He just didn't keep at it, but I just kept at it. I just kept doing it.
Was the one guy that you bullied, does he still make YouTube videos?
Not that I know of.
You did end a career. That's the first one.
Maybe he does. I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah, it was a pretty interesting time. I haven't really thought about this stuff in a while actually. But yeah, I just kept doing it. And I remember I would like set goals for myself. Like I remember at the end of my freshman year, I want to say I had like 300 subscribers or something, and summer break was coming up and I wasn't old enough to work a job yet, but I was old enough for my mom to make me volunteer at places for free for no pay. So she wanted me to do that, but my real focus was YouTube. I was like, I'm going to do this. I only have to volunteer 4 days a week. I'm going to grind the fuck out of this. I remember telling kids in I think it was environmental science I was taking at the time. I was like, I'm going to have 1,000 subscribers by the end of the summer. And they're like, you should be more realistic with your goals. And I was like, fuck you. And then at the end of the summer, I had 1,000 and I came back to school and I was like,
damn.
Yes, he was wrong. And they were like, we don't really care. But yeah, basically, I was just very obsessed with it. I was really, really obsessed with doing that. And the idea of this like community existing was really interesting to me. And then at some point when I was like 15 years old, I think I had 5,000 subscribers. I had previously been shouted out by a channel you probably know of named Quentin Reviews.
I feel like he's in my YouTube chat.
Is he?
What is he? What kind of content does he do?
He makes like media analysis. He makes like 8-hour videos about iCarly. I feel like he wouldn't like you because he's like a breadtube kind of guy, or he was for a while. What do you mean by
that? I'm a breadtube kind of guy.
Yeah.
Shut up.
He's like a big ContraPoints fan. But at the time, he was like more of a commentary channel, and he shouted me out when he had like, I don't know, 25,000 subs, I think. And so I think I got like 1,000 subscribers from that or something.
Okay.
And then at some point, there was this guy named Kavos, and Kavos was like a big commentary channel at the time. He was killing it, and he was making a lot of videos about Jake Paul. And I like made some tweet, and I was like, why is every video about Jake Paul? Which is like a dumb criticism, doesn't really matter. But Keemstar saw that, and he was a big Kavos fan at the time. And he was like, he made this video where he said a lot of shit, but one of the things he said was, why is your name TurkeyTom if you're not even a fucking turkey? And that meme stuck for a while, but it got some attention at that time. And so while I didn't get like a big sub boost from it, a lot of creators on Twitter who saw that, they were like, oh, Keemstar's going after this kid, let's like subscribe to him or something. It was kind of like a pity thing, honestly. But I met a lot of YouTubers like Willie Mac Show at that time, who I'm still friends with to this day. And that was, I was younger than all of them at the time. I think I was 15 and they were like 20. But they like gave me YouTube advice and what?
I'm so sorry. Keep going.
They gave me a lot of YouTube advice, and we just talked about content stuff, and I just kept doing it. And then,
wait, backing up. This is when you're a sophomore in high school?
Yeah, like early sophomore year.
When you're starting to post, are you approaching this like strategically? Like, are you trying to map out, like, if I drop a video at like 9 a.m., I can maximize for Europe? Or are you thinking like, this is what's hot right now, I see it on the algorithm, you're checking your like time watched? Or are you just like pumping out videos because you're like, oh, this is fun and I like it and hopefully I grow?
No, I definitely had like in mind, like I need to do things to grow. So one of the things I would do is at the end of every school year, because I didn't have as much time during school, I was like, I need to get ready videos for the summer because I want to post more. So I would get like 4 videos ready. So I had like June laid out when school ended. And then because I would have that backlog, I'd have time to get videos for the next month ready, and I would just keep rolling that. And then the idea behind that was like, by the time the school year runs around, I probably will have a month of videos before things get inconsistent again.
Okay.
So the summer was like the big growth period. There was, after sophomore year, I think I had 13,000 subscribers.
Damn.
And then there was this there was this like wave of channels, like the Storytime animation guys, and I don't even remember what I criticized them for looking back. I think it was just dumb shit, but I made a video about it. They got 1 million views that summer. And I went from 13,000 subs to 50,000 subs.
And this was in 16?
18.
2018. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah, 2018, I think. And so from there, I was like, okay, well, now I have like a decently sizable audience. Now I've gotten from, I'm still a small YouTuber, relatively speaking, but I have an audience watching me, and I just kept going from there. I think when high school ended, I think I had 100,000 subscribers, ish, maybe 120. And then I went to college, and freshman year was like tolerable, but I didn't really like it. Sure.
Before college, okay, so here's a question I've got. I think that when people are doing small businesses, when people are trying to make it in the world, people will start with things that they love. They have a really hard time, I don't want to say monetizing it, but like working it into something that other people can consume, right? So I'm sure that for every person like you, there are like 10,000 people who are like, I really like this video. You mentioned, Isaac or Ian, one of your friends, we were like, I think he was probably more talented than me. And I'm sure I've met people like that who are like, this guy could put me out of business.
He was just way funnier than me. Yeah.
Yeah. But why do you think that in your approach to things, it wasn't just you like making videos to see what would happen? Like you strategically kind of approached it, and you were willing to kind of like do that extra work to take like the fun, passionate thing of like making videos, but also kind of work it in like a business. Was it all just fun to you, or did anybody ever, I'm curious, like to start that process, what was it that got you thinking of it more like a business, or like more like I need to strategically approach this, and more rather than like, oh, I'm going to be a YouTuber and whatever?
It was a business to me, but it was the business of like views and subscribers. I didn't really care about the money. I didn't really need money.
Yeah. When I say business, I don't necessarily mean like focusing on the money. I just mean, but you're like strategically like focusing on growth and stuff. You're not just like randomly posting whenever. Like the fact that you're thinking ahead for summer, I need like a string of videos and I'm trying to hit these goals or whatever.
Well, I knew that the consistency was really important, and I could see that because I could see that the YouTubers that did well were the guys who were posting, fucking every day. And I wasn't able to post every day. I was trying to post like twice a week at one point, I think, back then. But it was, I knew that like to build an audience, you need to be in the limelight. You need to give people a reason to pay attention to you right now, especially when you're a smaller channel. Once you've got a little bit of an audience, then you can maybe work on a passion project that takes longer, but because the audience is waiting for it, they'll probably give it views or whatever. Like, look at H-Bomber guy, right? That guy barely fucking posts. He posted one video in the past few months and it got 20 million views or something like that.
Killer video.
Was it?
Or wait.
It did very well.
Oh.
Performed well.
Didn't that guy kill himself?
Oh, I get it. Allegedly, I don't think he really did.
Oh shit, never mind.
But
when you're approaching and you're making the videos and you're strategizing, you're doing these particular things, right? In the path to doing that, did you ever feel discouraged by like online stuff, or did you ever post a video and like feel like shit because it didn't do as well, or were you always like, I'm gonna make it? I know I'm gonna make it. There's like not even a doubt in my mind.
There were definitely doubts, but I guess my mindset behind it was just like, there was this old Ethan Klein video where he talked with his audience. It was a very candid video. And he talked about, it was a story about how he was very poor at the time, living with Hila in LA. And he remembered how he had to put like a bell pepper back.
It was a beautiful red bell pepper. And Hila wanted this red bell pepper for his salad.
For a salad.
Yeah, for a salad. I was looking at the things in our cart and I'm like adding it up in my mind. I'm counting up everything in our cart. I'm like at 19. We have $20. I'm like, I weigh the bell pepper. I take the bell pepper, I weigh it. Looking at the scale, I'm like, this puts us over. We can't buy this bell pepper.
Yeah.
This puts us over.
Yeah. And I think we both just really remembered the moment of like putting it back.
Because he was so broke, like he couldn't afford a bell pepper, and he was very upset by that. And he was talking, you know, Hila, they weren't really making money. I think she was trying to do art stuff, but they had to work jobs regardless of that. And they were having conversation about like, is this YouTube stuff worth pursuing at this point? Like, is it really worth it? And they were in a much worse position than me because I was like, you know, relatively wealthy kid, everything paid for by my parents. And they made the case that basically like, well, if we never try, it will never happen. If we don't try, it definitely won't happen. If we try, at least there's a chance. And maybe, you know, if it doesn't work out, we can look back someday and be like, well, at least I tried, right? So that was kind of the mentality I had, that like, you know, I would definitely I remember after I got like the 1 million view video, the next video I posted got like 500,000 views, which was good because it was related to the main video. And the next video I posted got like 80,000, which, you know, it was way better than I was doing before, because previously I was averaging like 10,000 views, but it was still like, well, what the fuck? Like I had 1 million, now it's 80,000. But I had the mentality basically that, well, I have the audience now. I'm in a better position than I was before. I have more of a chance now of getting another video with 1 million views. And, you know, if I quit, if I have this like perfectionist mindset, this is the thing a lot of artists have. They're like, you know, artists, whatever. They're perfectionists. And there's this quote that says, I'm stealing this from someone. The perfect is the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
It's basically just to say that if you never try to put out anything, you're constantly focused on perfectionism. Maybe once in a while you put out something perfect, but you'll never build a consistent thing out of it. You'll never actually make a living from it because you're always focused on making the most vital, perfect thing. And ultimately, it's hard to get attention from that. It's hard to make people care, right? Especially early on. You need to give people a reason to like care about you consistently for any amount of time before you can set the expectation that, okay, now I can make these perfect projects, right?
Sure. Okay, I'm not trying to circle jerk you too much, but 14 to 18, young man's life, really challenging. There's a lot of stuff going on. You're 21, so you're still in a challenging phase of life. You're growing, there's girls, or boys in your case. There's, I'm just kidding. There's girls, you're trying to do school, you've got parents, you've got college and all of this. And I'm sure that it must feel like you're in a pinball machine with all your other friends who are just bouncing around doing whatever, but you're like on this career path, right? Where you're like grinding away at this YouTube stuff and you're working to build this into a career while everything else is going on in the background. There are people that try to do this full time, like well into their, 20s or past school or when they're more stable, and they still can't handle getting a 500,000 view video and then posting an 80,000 view video, or they can't handle not having like a continual shout out or growth, or when they hit that, 20,000 subscriber bump 1 month and the next month they get 200 subs, it's like they can't, they're over. What, like, I'm just so curious, and I understand it's hard to answer because maybe it's just a biological thing, you're wired, or was it like a certain video or a certain mentor or a certain YouTuber? Like, why do you think you were able to push through all of that so really like effortlessly? Because it seems like when you talk about your early uprising, it sounds like an entrepreneur in his 30s who's like, yeah, I started grinding at this thing. I modeled my behavior off of successful people in the field, and then I continued to persevere and push through, knowing that I'd make it. And eventually I did this and that and that and that, and then I did it. And it's like, okay, this sounds reasonable. But then you're like, oh, and I was 15 when I did this. It's like I
had really bad tunnel vision, and I still do. Like, I was just very obsessed with it. Like, I cared about girls, but not that much. And not that I was getting a lot of female attention anyway at that time. And today, but I was really tunnel visioned on it. I just, like, there was nothing I actually enjoyed more than doing that. Like, did
you ever run into peers who were like obsessively trying to build the YouTube thing that you wanted to talk to? Like anybody in school or college? Nobody?
No, there was nobody. Everybody was, just kind of along for the ride. And that's what I felt like when I went to college. It was just like, It's the expected thing to do, which is why for a degree I picked digital media and journalism because it fit what I wanted to do best. Once I got there, I realized a lot of the kids there were kind of disinterested in what they were actually doing. They didn't seem really motivated for it. The professors were, they were decent, but a lot of them were like working second jobs. Like they weren't really making money. And I remember I had this conversation with a professor about like after class about like the realistic expectation of making money. And they kind of just laughed at me and they were like, go to a different school, And the idea of like being broke or like writing for BuzzFeed or something, and like living in New York and like writing shit I didn't care about was so dismal.
Did you have the perspective at the time, or did you realize that being, as stupid as it sounds, being 18 years old as a freshman in college with 100,000 subs on YouTube, you would already hit a level of success that most of your classmates probably wouldn't for the rest of their lives? Did that ever like dawn on you, or?
I don't know, a little bit, but I feel like they could have done it if they just took the steps I did, and they didn't for whatever reason.
Sure, but I mean, that's true of almost anything, right?
Yeah. I remember one thing I would do early on to like encourage myself a little bit was, it's really easy to look at a big YouTube channel and be like, fuck, how could I ever get there? How could I ever get there? But if you go on the Wayback Machine on archive.org, there's a very useful snapshot to see how everybody's channel was doing at any point in time. So I would go on like a YouTuber I saw that like, I was like, oh, this guy's content is so good. How the fuck did he get to this point? Like, how did he, Rome wasn't built in a day or whatever. How did he get there? So I would go back through his channel archive and go through the earliest screenshots and see when he had like 400 subscribers and be like, what the fuck was he doing then? And then like a year later, where was he? And like, how can I model my success to that level and get where they were within that time frame? And I would kind of build goals roughly based off of that.
Do you remember in particular, like any early YouTuber stuff you watched where you were like, that's a really good idea, I'm going to like bite that, or this guy's doing this really well, I'm going to copy this for a video? Do you ever remember like kind of trying to adopt any kind of habits or anything from other people?
Absolutely. I mean, early on, there was definitely people I was straight up ripping off. Obviously Leafy was one guy that I was very captivated by the fact that he was posting every day, getting so many views on content that probably took like fucking 2 hours to make, like a day. Like that was so interesting to me. And I think a lot of that was right time, right place for him in particular. It didn't last forever for him. But he really got early in on like a really interesting kind of phase. And he was very industrious about how he was posting and how he would do it every day. And the thing about Leafy that a lot of people don't remember is back in the day, the stuff that he became super known for was like basically bullying content, right? Like just like this kid sucks, look at his fucked up tooth. But before that, the stuff that got him to like 200,000 subs was like CSGO content, like story time videos, like fucking around in video games with friends. And then at a certain point, his like growth plateaued and he wasn't really growing. And then he was like, well, what the fuck is the next thing? And so by seeing that, I realized like YouTubers generally are not totally aimless with what they're doing. There's some strategy behind it. They can like make a decision to craft their future. And I very much was like, there needs to be a lot of thinking behind what you're doing and what the next step is going to be. And there's this phrase like getting out while it's still good, which I think is really important. A lot of people will blow up off of one thing and they won't be able to figure out what the next thing is in time. And they'll just kind of drift into the sunset off that one thing. And they're too scared to jump onto the next thing. It's just like, well, what if it tanks my career or something, right?
Yeah.
What if I lose the following I do have? But if they never make that jump, once again, like Ethan said, if you don't try, you will fail. If you do try, there's a chance you'll succeed, I very much had the mentality that like once in a while I got to rethink what I'm doing because before you know it, you could be kind of down and out. Your content could be passe. Yeah. And I still have that to this day. So I got to think about a lot right now, which is like, what is the next thing? Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned the like modeling after other people, because I think when you talk to a lot of people that aren't artists or whatever the fuck this is, a lot of people think that the stressing and going for original ideas and trying to do totally original stuff all the time is like the best way to make your name initially. And I remember, because I went to school for music, and especially in jazz, you spend a lot of time transcribing solos where you just listen to a guy play and you try to like learn it over and over and over again. And we had always learned the saying that like I think good artists, it's something like good artists imitate and great artists steal. That like if you want to become like really great and you're just starting out, it's better to just like totally copy other people's stuff, make it part of your vocabulary, than grow off of it. So it's interesting for the YouTube stuff that you essentially approach it the same way. I'm curious, now that you're a larger YouTuber, you mentioned before that there must be some strategy. When you look at a lot of large YouTubers, do you feel like most of them do strategize, or do you think they mainly kind of got lucky and then they plateau and they can't figure out how to move on? Or what do you think? Yeah, what do you think is like the average YouTuber approach? Do you think that they strategize as heavily as you do, or they just kind of go with the flow? I
feel like on average, the average YouTuber probably they strategize enough to get big to a certain point they're comfortable with, and then unfortunately they get kind of lazy. They don't really push the envelope or the boundary anymore.
Like Hasan Piker.
Yeah, and they yes, and they kind of coast off of that for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an exception that somebody's able to make it for a long time. I will say,
like Destiny.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
There used to be this like notion. You probably remember this, that like if you're a YouTuber, you've got like 3 to 4 years and that's it, and you're done. And that's because a lot of people back then weren't strategizing or thinking about the next thing. But now you've got these legacy creators who've been doing it for like 10, 15 years who are still around, like streamers. You've got YouTubers who do it. I mean, I mentioned SXE Phil earlier. His channel has had various like, high points and low points, but he's been consistent throughout time and trying to improve what he's doing. And he's still doing it to this day, getting pretty good views. That's the case for a lot of people. But also, I'd say that's probably like 10, 20% of people. A lot of other people, they're kind of a flash in the pan. They're experimenting when they're starting out. They're figuring out how to get big. Once they have a big blow up that feels impressive to them, they never really escape that. And I think that's a very unfortunate position to be in. And I'd be like very insecure and paranoid about that.
It sounds like really stupid, but I think a lot of YouTube careers are. You ever watch SpongeBob?
Yes.
You see the ripped his pants episode?
Yeah.
Unironically like that. You have like your one hit wonder, and it's always kind of sad when you see those people, because you'll look at YouTube videos they're pushing like 5 years later, and it was like a 5 million view channel, or like 5 million sub channel, and they're getting like 5-figure, like 10,000 views per video, and they're trying to do kind of like the same shtick they did in like 2017, and I'm like, ugh.
I know you mentioned Hasan. I don't know if that was tongue in cheek, but that is kind of the problem he's having right now, I think, where he blew up off of his ripped pants was like cops, kill cops or whatever. And he never really developed a fan base that liked him that much outside of that. And so now he's trying to do like IRL content and stuff like that. And it's working better than the average person could ever do, because he has a big audience, right? Mm-hmm. He does.
And he has like the assets to make it. Like he's a decently funny guy. Obviously he looks really good. Like he's got a workhorse ethic. Like the guy will stream like 12 hours a day for years.
I think he's done it too late.
No way. His concurrent viewership is still like 20,000 viewers.
He can come back. But what I'm saying is like, it would have been a much more seamless transition if he had done it like 2 years ago.
For sure. Yeah. But I think sometimes people get stuck in what you said, where you've got your blow up thing, because when you try to angle towards something else, it requires a lot of trust in yourself, because you've got to be willing to take a dip in views to be like, it's going to be fine. Like I'll figure my new thing out and come back. And some people, when they hit that first dip, they run back to the last thing, and then they just ride that all the way into nothingness.
You have to be comfortable. I think when you're at a size like that, when you're making money like that, you have to be comfortable maybe for a few months, maybe for a year, losing like 20-30% of your revenue. Sure. You're still going to make, he's still going to make mad money.
Yeah, of course.
We know YouTube.
He's already retirement.
If either of us lost 20-30% of revenue, we still be making mad money, right? But it would be like, ooh, the number's going down. And that instinctively in your human brain is like, what the is this?
And I also think it sounds weird and it sounds very disconnected and privileged or whatever, but I'm pretty sure at this position, like, you're not really thinking about the money, are you?
I think about it for sure in terms of like a growth thing, but it's not meaningfully changing my life.
Okay. Like if there was like a copyrighted song that I could use to take a video from 300,000 views on a video to like 4 million views, I would instantly go for the 4 million views. I wouldn't even think about like monetizing. Yeah.
Well, it's also because like what's more valuable when you have the money already is like the thing I was talking about early on, which I was solely focused on, which wasn't money. It was just like acquisition of content, acquisition of swag, acquisition of people watching my stuff. And I was very fortunate at that time because I didn't have to worry about bills. My parents paid for everything. They bought me my first car. They paid for my phone bills. My mom.
What was your first car?
What?
What was your first car?
Toyota Corolla.
Oh,
2016. It was my grandmother's old car.
Was it brand new? Oh no, grandma's old car. Okay.
It was a 2016. I think I got it in 2019, so it was a few years old, but it was pretty new.
That's pretty new. Yeah. What happened to grandma?
She's still alive.
Why'd she give you a 3-year-old car?
She got a RAV4.
My God, you guys are just. Did you ever crash your car?
I backed it into a Jeep.
Did you tell him, or did you just like drive off?
No, he was there. It was in a parking lot. I backed into the Jeep. He was like, I remember like as I was backing it into it, he was like, bro, wait. And then I smashed into his roll cage. And so his Jeep wasn't damaged. Okay. But there was a giant imprint of the roll cage in the back of the car.
Did you tell your parents?
Oh yeah. I was living with them at the time. There was no way I could get away with it.
You're going to say, oh, that must have happened in the parking lot. Did you ever lie to your parents?
I lied. I lied to them like crazy, yes. But
Okay.
there was no way I would have got away with that. It was like a really bad, like, it was like a $4,000 fix on like a
Oh, geez. Okay.
$12,000
You
car.
really? How fast do you back up?
Not that fast. It like damaged the frame and everything though. This car just like crumpled.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay. How old were you then? Was that like 18 or?
Yeah, I was like 18.
Okay. You're walking through class. You've got all these people commenting on videos. You've got all these subs online. You're getting all this attention. Does that not do anything to your ego when you're talking to classmates? You've got people that are like, I just came from high school. Like ordinarily, it's like you were the big fish in the small pond and now you're the small fish in college. But you're not really. Do you ever feel that at all? Does that impact your attitude, your ego, the feeling like you're getting more attention or better than anybody or whatever? Like
sometimes, I mean, sometimes I'll have that thought, obviously, but I generally, when I have that, I'll catch myself and be like, shut the fuck up. It doesn't really matter. I will say my mind was definitely elsewhere, always in class. Like, you know, teachers talking about whatever the fuck. And I'm just thinking about like, what the fuck is happening on YouTube right now? You know, what am I going to do when I get home? What's the video I'm going to make? So yeah, I mean, it didn't really turn into a huge ego thing for me, I don't think, because I was self-aware of the fact that I had seen YouTubers become very egotistical and unlikable and unrelatable, and you don't want to be in that position. You don't want to get too high on yourself. Obviously, to a
like
certain
Hasan Piker.
Yes, obviously to a certain extent, what you and I do is very cool, and I think a lot of people are envious of the position. But I don't want to let it get to my head, really. You know, I don't think there's any benefit to that.
Why do you think when you look at YouTubers or streamers today, what do you think are the things that make you the most unlikable? Like, what are things that, if I wanted to destroy my reputation with my audience, or if a YouTuber wanted to just destroy, like, what are the things that you think make people?
I think it would be hard for you to do it, but broadly speaking, I think a thing that pisses people off a lot is complaining about your job. Everybody complains about their job. Obviously, it makes sense, and there are valid complaints.
Like Hasan Piker on that one viral clip.
That's why I'm actually bringing this up. There are valid complaints to bring up with the job. Like there are stresses to it, and in some ways, it can be harder than a normal job. But when you're making the amount of money that we're making, when you're making fucking YouTube videos, when you have like all these followers and stuff, people just, they don't want to hear it. When they're stalking at fucking an Amazon warehouse, right? And they're having like a shitty day, and then they hear that Hasan Piker is like, you know, it's so socially draining. Like it's just not something they want to hear. So that's a big one.
Yes, a real job can be gruesome. A real job can make you very tired, but a real job doesn't suck the soul out of you. You know what I mean? In the same way that 9 hours of streaming absolutely will.
I think a big thing definitely is, a thing that will happen is you'll go from a very relatable, down to earth person to being a rich person, and you'll do rich person things, and you'll talk about rich person things. This is a big thing for like someone like Tom Segura, who's a pretty famous comedian. He got a lot of shit with his audience because he went from being relatable to being rich. And instead of just being rich, he would be like, all these fucking broke losers in my comment section, call me when you have a Porsche, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like people don't want to hear that.
I think, I feel like
sense.
XQC was running into problems with this, where he was like showing up in crazy outfits, like at casinos, like taking pictures of like $10,000 stacks and gambling and shit, and people started to feel like it wasn't the same kid that was just playing Overwatch.
People especially don't like it when they respond to criticism being like, well, I'm rich. You remember he did that during the Ethan thing. He was like, look at my watch. He did it when
house is on my wrist. Yeah.
Yeah, he did it when somebody, someone on Twitter called him out. It was kind of a dumb criticism. They were like, I can't imagine a bigger scum fuck. And it was him like soy facing at like a building being destroyed in Gaza. And he responded with a picture of him with a bunch of money. That's hilarious. And I think his audience at this point is cool with that. But obviously to like people outside of your audience, that might hurt your ability to grow because they're just going to see you as like a scum streamer they're never going to want to hear from.
Yeah.
There are certain things you can do that turn people off. And I'm definitely guilty of doing things like that. Not with the flexing thing, but I've definitely done things that like to a certain amount of the audience, we'll just have them like, they don't want to listen, you know? And I think it's okay to do some of that stuff if that's who you are. I think it's important. You don't want to hide it. But at the same time, you don't want to get in a habit where that's all you're doing. That's everything that people see of you.
There's a really fine line. I know this because I transitioned from StarCraft into a horrible game called League of Legends. And when somebody's angry, but they're not really angry, or they're like angry, but it's like funny angry, it's like the most hilarious thing in the world to watch. But when somebody's angry and they're like genuinely salty, it's like the least fun thing in the world to watch.
Yeah.
And yeah, like watching somebody like playing whatever teammates or but they're like having a good time and they're fun. It's like it's cool, it's funny, but as soon as you can tell somebody's like genuinely really upset and they're just like salty as then you can enjoy it, but only like in an anti-fan way. And then ordinary fans are like, this is dumb, like I don't want to watch this anymore. Yeah.
When you were streaming early on, did you have like a content strategy behind it, or was it just like, I'm making money, I just need to fucking ride this thing?
I think no, I just streamed a ton. I think that when I was in high school, I was a pretty funny guy. I've always done decently in terms of like comedy, and we had a like TV set up outside the band hall or sometimes inside the band room, and we'd sneak up like during church because I went to a private school, so we'd like sneak in. I think it was like every other Wednesday we'd sneak up in one of the practice rooms and we'd be playing like Smash or Mario Kart or whatever. And it was just funny, like we would like be playing games and like screaming at each other and like insults and like just like crazy like off the wall, the worst fucking shit you could say, and it was like always funny to do it. And then I had a friend suggest to me, I think when I was like 20 or 21, he was like, oh, there are like these weird Korean kids online that have like this software and you can like stream. And this is back when it was like 200 kilobits per second. And you can only have like 15 viewers or else you'd have to pay like $50 a month to have like 10 more viewers. It was just, ouch. But then when I started making content, I started going. But I have like a lot of natural proclivities or whatever that gear me towards being a content creator. Like online hate doesn't really bother me that much. I'm pretty independent in terms of my view of myself. I don't let other people like make me feel like shit. Which it seems like is a lot of stuff that is also kind of built into you as well.
I think it was developed for me, honestly, because it was morally developed for me. Like
you can say that, but like
early on,
not to pull the age card, but like I could believe you if you're like in your 20s or 30s. But the fact that you were able to do this in your mid-teens. Like, if I would have been a big streamer when I was 15, 16, 17, bro, I would have been such an arrogant, egotistical piece of shit. It would have been the worst. I'd be the worst human being ever.
I probably was more of an asshole. I wasn't a piece of shit, but I probably was more of an asshole.
Sure, maybe, okay.
But
I did bully that one kid, that's true.
Exactly. But I remember early on when I was 14, like, I think by the time I was 16, it stopped really bothering me. But I think when I was 14 and I started making videos, I remember I would get a comment and I'd be like, what the fuck? I'm going to leave a 5-paragraph response. Okay. I would be like, you're wrong and here's why, and I would like go dark Viper mode. I would detail a why.
Now you do that on your alternate account.
Exactly. Now I do that on my 15 alternate accounts where I spread misinformation about myself so I can counter it on my other account.
Okay.
But yeah, with your content stuff, obviously Twitch is a big deal, but I feel like YouTube has been instrumental in making you a lot bigger and a lot more seen. Just because it's a much easier entry point to watch, half
and it's
hour,
better. My biggest like career mistake was putting YouTube on the back burner for like 10 years. I don't think I started taking it seriously until like 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And I had a channel. The thing that sucks, I had a channel in like 2011 with like 80,000 subs, which right now doesn't sound like a lot, but back then
for a streamer,
I had like a million view YouTube video, which back then is like, damn, in 2011. But I just like didn't do anything. I was like, I'm a streamer, I'm not a YouTuber. So that was really bad. But
do you think a lot about like how to cater your streams to the YouTube audience, or like this is going to get clipped? Do you think about that?
A little bit. I most of my stuff is long form focused. I think I don't typically think about. Well, now I kind of like I've borrowed the griper strategy where I just kind of like say really retarded shit. So when people clip me, like half the time I just say I was obviously trolling. Because prior to that, people would clip like 20 seconds out of like a genuine question and make it sound like I'm an idiot. And I'm like, okay, well now I'm just gonna start making shit up. And people said it was stupid and everybody called me out on it, but I think it actually has worked now, because now whenever people spread clips of me on Twitter, everybody's like, this is obviously a troll, and people don't believe him as much anymore. So it seems, thank you, Nick Fuentes. He's back on Twitter.
Besides from that, I guess more what I mean is like when you're doing a stream and do you have like a docket in mind of like, this is what I'm going to talk about, and I know this video that I'm going to talk about is probably going to get clipped for the YouTube and get a bunch of views. Do you have any of that in your mind?
So for me, actually, I guess I'm kind of curious with this you too. I always maximize, probably as of like 10 or 11 or 12 years ago, I used to give lessons for StarCraft, because when you were a programmer, you gave lessons to people. And I was approaching it where like there was a week where I had like 25 hours of lessons that were scheduled. And I'm like, I am actually starting to hate streaming. I can't tell people like to do the basics anymore. This is driving me crazy.
Yeah.
And especially in that period, it was the only time where I was like, oh God, I don't want to wake up and stream. And then I'm like, bro, I was cleaning carpets like 3 years ago. Why the am I like complaining about this? And I was like, I'm going to maximize my content for things that I like. So that might mean like I've suicided my stream for like years on League of Legends and shit. And I'm like, I don't care. We're playing League today. F you guys. If you don't like it, leave. I always try to maximize for things that I enjoy, because I don't ever want to be at a spot where I feel like I'm having to make content because my audience wants it, or because like I have to do it to keep my channel going. I just try to do what I want.
That's a very important thing to do. I think you don't want to accrue an audience who is only there for content that you hate making.
Yeah.
Because you can tolerate that for a little while. You know, you can tolerate a certain amount of it. Like certainly sometimes there will be a thing on stream, like this new like Lex Updog video that I watched.
Yeah.
Honestly didn't want to watch it. I'm kind of done with that drama. I wasn't interested. But I was like, you know what? People want me to watch it. I'll probably have a good response with some good insight. It'll make a good clip. It'll get a bunch of views and people will want to see that from me. So that's, you know, I did that, right? But then other times on stream, you know, the end of my streams, I'll stream for like 8-9 hours. And 4 hours of it are generally me playing Fortnite and just bullshitting. And at the beginning, when I would do that kind of stuff, my viewership would go from like 1,000 viewers to like 400. And now I'll get like, you know, 15 to 1,700 when I'm streaming drama. And I'll get like 13 to 1,400 or maybe even a little more. Maybe it'll just maintain while I'm playing Fortnite. Because I know I have to condition the audience to what I want to do because I have to actually like what I'm doing to do it well. And I think that's really important.
That conditioning part is really hard for a lot of people though, because they very quickly fall into audience capture patterns where as soon as they do something that the audience doesn't like, they're like, oh God, they're like mad at me. And it's hard. Like even I have to gear my mind towards, listen,
you just have to say, like,
we're training this. This is what I'm doing. If you don't like it, leave. I stream, I'll do drama. I'll cover the subreddit for like 2 or 3 hours every day. And then after that, I do what the I want. I said, I'm reading a book today. We're reading a book. Okay. Sit here and like it or get the and come back tomorrow. Yeah.
This is a phenomenon with like musicians a lot where they'll blow up off of an album people really like. And the people, because they like that album, will want just more of that. And it's a very hard thing to say, listen, I appreciate you guys want that, but I'm going to do what I want to do. And on one hand, it might cause a momentary dip in money or something like that. But long term, it's much better for these artists because they can actually make art that they care about, that they want to do, and they'll enjoy touring and stuff like that. And they can still play the songs that people love. They can still play the big stuff. But they're going to burn out and just be miserable and basically only be remembered for the past if they never try to move forward.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to say f- the audience a little bit, just a little bit. It's really important. And that's the thing that I always try to remember. It's like, you know, I'm in a position, I'm financially fortunate enough that I can ride stuff like that out a little bit. I don't have to worry that much about like a month in views dipping a little bit because I know that long term it's going to be beneficial for me. It's going to be beneficial for my channel. I'm going to enjoy the job more. I'm going to want to spend more time on it. And the more time you want to spend on the job, the better you're going to do long term, right? Versus if you burn yourself out on shit you are not that interested in. And then within 3 months, you're like, well, fuck, now I only have and it can happen very quick. Now I only have an audience who wants me to do this one fucking thing and they won't watch it unless I do it. And then you're kind of starting back at square one before you were from that. And it's very hard to, it's possible, but it's hard to crawl out of that.
Yeah, I agree. When you were, so you're 18, 19, which was like 1 or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay. Sorry. When, how many years did you stay with college?
Year and a half.
A year and a half. So when you get to college and when you're in college, firstly, did your parents ever try to ultimatum you? Like, you're going to school, no more of this YouTube stuff. Do they not care how much time you're putting into it because your grades were good or what?
They were just like, you need to go to school. We know you're going to do the YouTube thing at this point, but prioritize school. Basically was it.
And then at some point in college, clearly you're like, no, I'm going to prioritize the YouTube thing. Was it because you were making enough money? Were your parents supportive of that? Were they worried? Did they? They
were not supportive. To an extent, my mom is still not. But basically the calculation with it was the first year of college I was doing it. It was doing pretty well. I was making consistent money relatively. I was making like $5,000 a month. It was pretty good. It was enough to live off of, certainly.
Did you ever have like did you figure your taxes out really quickly or did you ever have like a year where you were like completely f***ed on that?
My mom is a CPA.
Okay, okay, wow, must be nice.
She did it for me.
Nice. Okay, the silver spoons are just falling out of your mouth.
Literally.
All right, wow.
Which I'm very thankful for because I fucking hate doing taxes. Just the monotony. But I was making decent money, and I got to the end of that year, and I was like, well, I don't like school. It kind of sucks, but I guess I managed to like still make decent money doing it. I can just ride this out the rest of school, right? I didn't want to be there. I was constantly complaining about it to my girlfriend at the time, my friends. I was like pissed the off. And I was especially jealous that some of my friends had not gone to school and just done YouTube stuff. And
friends that you'd had from high school or friends that you'd made online?
Online friends. Okay. Online friends that I'd known for a long time.
Gotcha.
And I was pissy about that. I was like, fuck these guys. They wake up whenever they want. They make videos whenever they want. And I never would have done that. Like, I don't think I can just, I'm not like one of these like willy-nilly artists. I was like, I'll just work whenever I want. But I envied the freedom that they had. I didn't like that I was locked into this thing that I didn't want to be there. The education was bad. The students were okay. I had a few friends, but it wasn't like I was having like the most explosive party time of my life. And it was COVID too. So we were wearing masks.
Shit, that's right. Yeah.
We were wearing masks. I was taking, some of my classes from my dorm And so it just sucked. But I was like, I'll ride this out. I get to my sophomore year, and the sophomore dorms, for whatever reason, were way shittier than the freshman dorms. The freshman dorms were relatively nice. I had my own room because it was COVID, so I didn't have a roommate. It was my own place. It had air conditioning, and I basically had freedom within that. The next time, for sophomore year, the dorm I was given, I was alone, kind of, but it was like there was like a communal living space in the middle of it, so I could hear my neighbors. The room was much smaller, and there was no AC, and it was fucking summer. And it was
what school did you go to? Do you say? Or?
I can't say.
Okay,
I'll tell you. But it was just like a normal liberal arts college. Like it wasn't like a
I got you. It's
prestigious
Don't
school.
worry, it's all good. Okay, I understand what's going on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Anyway, what do you mean?
No, it's all good. Go ahead.
Okay.
I won't tell anybody.
Okay.
I
Buddy.
swear.
Okay. Anyway, the dorm sucked. The dorm sucked. It was like,
was it like required dorming for your first 2 years or whatever, or why did you live with your parents? Or
it was hours away. The school was like 4 hours away from my parents. So, I was going to school there. It just sucked. The living situation, they wouldn't let me put in an AC because I said it would use up too much electricity and like blow a fuse or something, which is retarded. So I had like this fan on me. I was sweating my balls off. I hated it.
At this point in your college stuff, was anybody ever recognizing you on campus, or not really at that point yet?
No, and we were all wearing masks.
Okay.
So nobody would have. But no, I'd never been recognized in person at that point.
Gotcha.
But I had, I don't know, like 160,000 subscribers, 150. I was making okay money, but this is when like freshman year was relatively easy, I would say. Sophomore year, it was still kind of easy, but it was just it was a little bit more that just tipped me over the edge, where I like couldn't dedicate as much time to YouTube as I wanted. And I really was not having a good time. And I was like, I just want to make the YouTube thing work. And at this point, I slowly came to the conclusion over that like 3-4 month semester that I'm just going to say, fuck it. I'm going to try to save up as much money as I can. If I have to say fuck finals, I will. So I started taking a bunch of Adderall. I'm prescribed. I started making videos in my dorm a lot. I started skipping a bunch of classes. And by the end of that semester, I had like 70 or 80 grand in savings, something like that. And I skipped.
Was there ever like a thought where you're like, I'm going to run away, or I'm going to like abandon my parents' financial support of me to pursue the YouTube thing? Was that like why you were saving money?
That's why I was saving the money. Cause I was like, cause they had told me like,
you were like, they're going to disown me and I'm going to go out on my own way. And
I mean, literally what they had told me was like, if you're not going to college, you're not going to live here.
And now you had to find a new accountant too. So
yeah, I was going to be fucked. But I wasn't really thinking that far ahead. It was just like, I need to make enough money. And in my mind, I think I wanted 80 grand because in my mind that was like 3-4 years of rent and like groceries. I could like live and figure it out, right? Till the end of my college term.
Yeah. Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have a younger brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever communicate with him over any of this, or how much younger is he?
He's 4.5 years younger than me. At the time, I guess he would have been like 14.
Okay.
So, I mean, he knew I was doing YouTube stuff.
Sure.
But it wasn't like he wasn't really at the point where I could like talk to him about that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
He is
14,
now.
barely a human, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it just wasn't, it just, I was fucking mad. I was miserable. And so I just put all my time to making YouTube videos. I remember there was this one like 48-minute long video I made about this guy named Maximilian Muss. And I recorded, edited, and posted that video within like 48 hours. I was up all that time. I was going crazy in my dorm.
Jesus.
I was skipping classes, and I remember my finals, I think I had like 6 finals or something, and I think I skipped like 3 or 4 of them. I just didn't go because finals week, it was coinciding with like November, December ad revenue.
Oh,
and
shit,
I was like, oh, this is a big deal.
Uh-huh.
And so I remember one month, I think I made like 11 grand, and I think another month I made like 17 grand. And so that stacked with what I already had and the stuff I'd been making from before. I think I crossed like the 80 grand threshold. And so I remember I drove home from school and my parents were like, hey, it's your grandmother's birthday. We're going to go there. I was like, okay. So I stopped at my grandmother's house. We celebrate her birthday or whatever. It was, nice. Everybody's asking me how's school. I'm like, it's good. It's good. It's going really well. We drive home. And as soon as I walk in the door, I'm like, I'm dropping out. And they were like, they didn't even believe it. They thought I was going to change my mind. They were livid.
Was all of the bank account stuff and everything in your name? Like it was all going to your stuff? Or
it was in my name, but they could see it. They could see how much I was making, but that didn't really they didn't really care. In their mind,
Interesting.
YouTube was just a very fleeting thing.
Sure. That's crazy though, that your parents would see you accumulating like tens of thousands of dollars in an account and they wouldn't be thinking like, wow, I hope he sticks with college, I guess. Yeah.
And their mind is like, he needs to get a degree. Because that's how they did it. And they were, I think they were the first in their families to go to school. Well, I mean, my dad had siblings, they all went to school, but they're the first generation to go to school. So it was a big deal to go to school. And they did the very normal process. They went through high school, they went to college, they got jobs after because of their degree, and it made sense for them. And that just wasn't something I was really interested in at that point. And especially with the thing I was going for. And to this day, my mom kind of wants me to go back to school in some way, which is funny because I guess I'm like a millionaire now. But
you're way better than that, right? You're way better than those college losers.
I don't need those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They're cucks. They should have done YouTube.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I just like, I was still very uncertain internally with my decision. I was like, maybe I just my whole life up. But, I held on the decision. I eventually drove back to school to get the rest of my stuff I left in my dorm. I officially unenrolled. I came home. They didn't kick me out. They let me stay there. And like the following August, I got my first apartment, which is still the place I live in now, but I'm trying to move out to get a house. And I just kept doing it, and it's worked ever since. But certainly for, I'd say maybe even like a year after that, I had a very big uncertainty about like, fuck, is this really going to work out? Did I make the right decision? At this point, there's not a lot of doubt in my mind, that I did the right thing, but definitely when everybody around you is saying like, what the is wrong with you? Why are you doing this? And I don't blame them for thinking that either. It's not like a thing where like, you didn't believe in me. Like I wouldn't believe in me. Like you're doing YouTube videos. Like that doesn't make sense. It doesn't equate. Like, right.
It's really hard when this is a content creator episode, guys. Okay. So if you're not a content creator, you. It's hard when you're kind of like forging this path, because in any other circumstance, if anybody was to ask you for advice in your position, like a reasonable person was like, you need to stop and not do this. This is probably not going to work out. Someone else. Yeah.
Right.
And then you also have like the problems. I said this with Kanye, where when Ye is like, I'm like the king of the world, like everybody, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I mean, with that much attention, the richest guy on the planet, like how would you even separate out like a delusion from reality if you're Kanye West, right? And obviously we're not at that level. You're not at that level yet. I'm getting there. But like, yeah, when you're thinking like, imagine talking to a therapist, and you're like, I feel like everybody is like thinking about me and talking about me all the time, and it's really stressful. And the therapist is like, oh no, nobody thinks about you as much as you think they do. And I'm like, okay, well here's like a 500-page thread on a random website where everybody's talking about me constantly. Like it's really hard to process and deal with all of that. And again, I keep stressing this. You'll understand this when you're older, okay? But the fact that you're doing all of this at such a young age is also really crazy. Because people are already dealing with normal like social interactions, like their first big breakup, or missing mom and dad, like going to college, or trying to figure out what they want to do for work. Like these are like the huge like person defining things that are happening at your age range, but you're already like set out like a decade's worth into a career path, which is just super fascinating to me.
Well, I would have those thoughts. Like I would, I'm still a person, I would go through those problems, but I would basically be like, well, that sucks. Time to edit a YouTube video.
Sure.
Like that was kind of my mentality. And for whatever reason, it just took precedent in my mind. I do remember when I dropped out, the thing that was interesting is like my parents are they very much disapproved of it. But all my buddies from high school, when they came home that winter and I talked about what I had done, they were like, you did the right thing. You're going to be fine. For whatever reason, I guess just for seeing me do it for so long and seeing how obsessed I was with it, they had faith that I would figure it out.
There's a really hard,
that felt good.
There's a really hard razor to walk, where it's like a razor's edge difference between some people are way too arrogant, they think too highly of themselves and they lack the humility to be successful, and some people are way too like skittish or scared, and then they lack the actual like motivation to push through. And there's like a very fine edge of where you're humble enough to see your faults, but you're arrogant enough to know that you're going to make it, and you have to like combine that to like make it in the content creator world.
You have to like constantly walk that tightrope, I think.
Because if you fall too far off of either edge, the perfectionist, like you said, just stops making content or gets defined by one big blow up or one Tom bully video, and then the other guy becomes
arrogant. Like you'll just
boogie too.
You'll ignore all the problems. You just think it'll last forever.
What do you think up to this point? I guess we can say up to now. Fuck it, because we're basically at now. What do you think has been like the hardest part of your career? What's been like the singular most difficult thing to deal with, or the singular most like span of time to deal with?
Definitely when I dropped out of school, that just sucked. I was like, because when I dropped out, my friends did come back for a little bit. We were hanging out, and then they went back to school. So I was in my hometown. I was alone. My parents didn't like what I was doing. They were reminding me of it every day, which I don't blame them. They were pissed off at that.
They didn't ever like threaten to like take the computer again or anything, even though I know you're older, but like you're living in their house. They're not like, we're not getting internet for you. Like,
I think they would say things like that, and then it would never really follow through for whatever reason. I think they just didn't know how to deal with the situation. They were under the impression I would go back to school, and I think at the time I would probably lie to them and be like, yeah, I will.
Did they ever like push you onto like a school therapist or anything like that? Or
No.
Oh, okay. And you never got in trouble for a video you made where your mom was like, why did you call this guy a pussy or say a bad word? They didn't care about anything like that in your videos?
They don't pay attention that closely. Once in a while they'll be like, yeah, I saw this thing about you when I looked up your name, and I was like, don't worry about it. And they're like, okay.
Oh, okay. They
They don't really worry about that kind of stuff. Sometimes my mom will be like, what's going on here? And I'll just be like, I'll give her like a brief summary, and she'll be like, I think you're wrong. And I'll be like, okay. And that'll be it. So yeah, my mom is at odds with it a little bit, but she appreciates the fact that I'm making money at the very least. She sees that now, even if she still is like, you should go back to school. You should go to business school, which I'm not going to do. Maybe. No. I feel like YouTube's a pretty good business school if you're just hiring contractors.
Sure.
I feel like I'm learning
But you could
a lot.
also like, have you ever seen The Wire?
Why do you always mention The Wire?
Because it's a good show. It's the best show on TV that's ever been made ever. You'll
The
appreciate it when you
Sopranos
get
is
older.
better.
Shut up.
It is.
But they're one of the drug dealer guys. He goes to
And the Sopranos, they're not.
They're not what?
It's a good show. It's a better show.
Oh, like you identify more with the characters in The Sopranos?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because okay.
Yeah, relatable.
Yeah, for you especially.
Representation.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, in The Wire, what's the point of The Wire?
The drug dealer guy that you can't relate to, he goes to econ school and then he practices the economics that he learns in his like drug dealing stuff. That could be you, except with MBA on YouTube.
Maybe, but the time spent doesn't really seem worth it. I think.
Make videos out of it.
Make videos out of it. Going back to econ school.
Yeah.
Here I am in
Here's
class,
me, yeah.
guys.
What's up?
What's up? It's me, TurkeyTom. Yeah, that'd be so epic.
That would be epic.
Yeah.
When you've gotten so you've gone in a pretty short amount of time from having heroes on YouTube to growing up, and I imagine at this point you've probably surpassed a decent chunk of people, if not where their height was, at least where they are now. What's that like? Have you, when you started meeting people, I'm sure you have, if not like in person, at least online through chatting, when you started meeting people that were like these larger than life figures that you looked up to on YouTube and you watch their videos all the time, and now you meet them as like an equivalent or larger content creator, what is that feeling like?
It was really weird at first, but a lot of that kind of happened when I was a teenager because we would just DM on Twitter. I've kind of become desensitized to it at this point just from meeting enough of them in real life. But one of the more surreal ones I had not that long ago was
Besides
I hung
me.
out. Yeah, I hung out with Adam YMS, who I was watching a lot when I was like, I want to say like 14 or something. I loved his movie reviews, and that was weird to meet him in person and like see he was a real person in real life you can talk to. Not that I didn't know that, but it is once in a while I'll still have those moments where it's like, what the fuck? I kind of felt that way when I met Alex Jones, honestly, even though I met him for like 1 second in the video we did.
Oh, I remember that.
That was so I don't know. You don't register sometimes that these people are taking up a 3D space.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own thoughts and feelings and emotions just like you. Maybe not just like you, but.
Do you ever file, do you ever have a moment where you meet people like this and they're filed in your head as like these kind of like larger than life people, and then you meet them and you like integrate them immediately into your like mind and how their job works and everything else? Or has that always been like a regular process? Like, I guess like growing up, there were certain content creators, people whose websites I would read, where they just like, they exist in like this mythical, legendary, untouchable part of my mind. And then I would eventually meet them and chat with them and be like, oh wait, hold on. Like, I totally understand like everything you do. And like, you might even see things where it's like, you could do this way better. Or like, you just have such a better understanding of them, I guess. Yeah.
I've definitely had that. And I've also had moments where I feel like a lot of the people I watched growing up kind of got lazy or got shitty. And I'm hyper aware of that. And I'm very paranoid about that happening to me, which is why I don't want to feel comfortable in my job. I don't want to feel like things are too good. I don't want to feel like I've reached some kind of apex. I always try to feel like I'm at the beginning of something, basically. Not that the stuff I've learned isn't valuable, but basically just to say that there's a lot more I can learn and there's a lot more I can take in from other stuff. But yeah, I've definitely noticed that it seems like some of the guys I grew up watching kind of fell off a little bit. And I've probably talked about some of them on YouTube, but it's disconcerting to see someone get comfortable or get lazy with the position they're in and not really progress past that. I feel like in my mind, it's always a noble thing to be like, okay, here's where I am now. How do I replicate the past 5 years of my life? Because I started here, now I'm here. How do I go from here proportionally to the next thing, right? Like if you start at 10,000 subscribers, you get to 1 million. It's like, how do I get to 10? You know what I mean? Obviously 10's a very big goal. It's hard to get there. Very few people get there. But in my mind, you should be aiming pretty high always. And it's disconcerting to see people just get comfortable with what they have. Maybe I'll feel different about that. Maybe I would if I was a little older. I feel lucky in the fact that I'm 21. 21 is kind of like a hungry age for things.
Do you still set like goals in terms of like where you want to be subscriber wise and everything? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. I write it out on documents I have on Google Drive, and I'm like, this is gonna happen. This is gonna happen.
And you started using
Obsidian.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
I was talking about heroin, but
Oh, I like that too.
yeah,
I like
really
that
chills
more.
you out, I think. Yeah.
It does chill me out. I'm on heroin right now. That's why I'm so nice. That's not why I'm not saying Despacito.
What up?
Your mom?
Yeah, you screamed like skibbity toilet like 50 times before we started the
You're so
camera.
skibbity.
What why'd you guys start using Obsidian? Where'd you even get the recommendation from?
Your streams.
Really?
Yeah.
Fuck,
I was just like that
Did
looks useful.
you get the sync and everything?
Yeah.
On all your devices. It's actually so nice. Oh my
Nice.
god. Are you very like collaboration or community oriented, or are you like existing kind of in your own little bubble?
I have a bunch of people who work for me, so we're always collaborating. I think I have 8 contractors consistently, maybe
Do you ever
10.
think about, I feel like there are people that try to grow as parts of communities or movements. Is that like an intentional choice to kind of like do your own thing, or? Yeah,
Definitely. I'm somewhat honestly paranoid about my association with you because I don't want to rely on you for content.
You don't
And
like being the biggest orbiter?
Am I the biggest orbiter? I guess I don't want to be in a position where like I need your community's approval or something like that, or I need to like rely on what you do, which is why I try to space out calling into the streams. There was a time early on when I started calling into the streams. I think I was calling in like a few times a week, and it was a lot of fun. But I don't want to be. There's this thing. I'll go back to music. This thing that happens with bands where I heard this band talk about how they wanted to stop opening for Metallica, and they were like, "Why the fuck did you do that? Like they're the biggest band in the world." And they're like, "Well, we don't want to be seen as an opening band. We want to be seen as a headlining band. We don't want to be seen constantly in tandem with this other person, right?" Maybe it would be different if I knew a bunch of other streamers like Asmon Gold or something who was having people calling to his stream all the time, or there was some XQC or something. But you're really the only big streamer that I really know. And so I don't want to just be the guy who calls into your streams to talk about stuff and leaves, and that's all people know me for, at least from your community, right?
Remember the first epic conversation that you had on my stream? Do you remember who that was with?
No.
Oh yeah, shit. I forgot that. You were like 19 then, huh? Was that 2 years ago? I was going to say the one with XQC was pretty funny, but
Yeah, that was like the second or third. I think the second one was Super Mega, and that was the third one.
okay. Do you
That was awesome.
that was
That was fucking epic. I don't think I'll ever be funnier in my life than I was in that moment.
do you
Merc, okay, this is the thing when I'm talking about headlining. Merc will always be known for that fucking moment. In your community, does anybody remember anything about fucking Merc other than she's crazy and she got Despacito'd and Gangnam Styled, little bro? She got Dami Tukosi'd.
that were moments. There were moments there for sure.
That was awesome. I don't know how I could recreate that, but that was the funniest I've ever been in my life. I don't know what happened that day. And I wasn't even streaming.
True. Do you feel pressure to cover certain things now as being part of like, even if you're not trying to be part of a community, you kind of are like part of the commentary community, like that ecosystem, I guess, of people. Do people ever come to you and be like, bro, you need to cover this, or why aren't you talking about this? Or if you see like all the guys in the community talking about something, like, fuck, I need to make a video on this, or...
Sometimes I feel that, but generally I don't know. People on stream will be like, you need to watch this, and I'll be like, I'll look at it for a minute and I'll just be like, I don't care. I'll just click off. I don't feel like obligated to cover anything in particular. I feel obligated to do my coverage well when I do it. Like if I'm going to get invested in something, I need to have the same level of consistency roughly across it. But I don't really feel a lot of obligation to do stuff like that. And once again, that kind of plays into the whole audience capture thing, where I don't want to feel like I need to do what the audience wants me to do at that moment. I'm somewhat paranoid about something like that happening, and I don't want to be put in a position where I feel like I have to do what they want to do or they won't watch me, right? I want to be able to talk about what I'm interested into, which is why I like to do other random bullshit and like reacting to funny videos and stuff, because I don't want people to only come to me just for my take, to have the best take. I think that's a really hard position to be in, where you're like in the takes factory. There is this real thing on Twitter that's manifested and it extends to streamers as well, where people just want to see their preconceived opinion reaffirmed by you. And obviously there's people in my audience that watch me because they generally agree with what I have to say, and that's going to happen. People with similar thought processes. But I don't want to get in a position where, like, part of the reason I'm sick of this false allegation shit is I don't want to have an audience of people who are looking for me to shit on a victim.
I was just going to ask you about that. When you're creating content, do you ever think of like the worst types of people that will be in your corner? Like for me, when you mentioned the girl thing, the victim thing, because women are victims. When you mentioned that, I remember back on Twitch, I used to complain as the kind of softcore porn thing rolled around where girls were dressing crazy and all this, and I'd be like, I don't think porn should be on Twitch. I don't think that softcore porn should. I think that these outfits are insane. Like, we need to stop. The people that would show up on my mentions would start like linking streamer girls that just like had like some cleavage or like had big boobs. And I'd be like, no, not like that. And I'd have to. I'm trying to have a position, but then the people that start to come into your corner are like the worst types of people, and it's like I don't want to associate with any of you losers.
There's definitely a thing that can happen where you'll accrue an audience unintentionally who's not really listening to what you have to say. They just like that you're saying it from a certain perspective that they hold. And I don't want to have that, which is, once again, why I'm sick of the false allegation stuff right now, because we had like 7 in a row. And I don't want to build up an audience where I can't talk about a real allegation and cover it, honestly, and be like, this guy is guilty.
Or women will come out like a police report and be like, no, he's fucking lying. But it's like, okay, hold on, chill. Okay.
Yeah, why don't you file it 1 minute later?
Yeah,
stuff like that. Like, it's a frustrating thing. And that's ultimately why I think this goes back to the false accusation thing. A really big problem with like Lex Updog or Katie Bugs is by making these false allegations or these very dubious claims, you contribute to that audience existing on YouTube who are looking to shit on the next victim. And you will inevitably contribute, intentionally or unintentionally, to the next guy who is gonna, maybe not be as level-headed as I am, who is gonna accrue an audience off of just like, this person's lying, this person's lying, this person's lying, this person's lying, no matter what the context is, no matter what the situation is. And that ultimately will hurt all the real victims in the long run. That's a bad thing for discourse. I don't want to have that. So yeah, I'm kind of praying there's a real pedophile soon. Can we get a real one? Like, can there be like one? We
can't open any of the Mama Max investigation files. Maybe he had a lead somewhere.
Yeah, we'll go deep into that. I'm gonna give him a call real quick.
Okay, that's good.
He's got a lot of good stuff.
Time to grab the voice changer. Do you
Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
Stephen Bonnell II.
I feel like I'm watching the intro to like another Saw movie every time I turn one.
You have built your career off of having sex with women. How would you feel if you had sex with men instead? Joseph Rogan.
Thanks.
Mr. Mutant.
When I make content online, I'm usually responding to people that are attacking me. So I don't feel bad attacking them, because fuck them, because they attacked me first.
Yeah.
When you guys as commentary people go to make stories on people, do you ever think before you like go down a road where you're like, I'm about to publish a video that's going to get over 1 million views that might end this person's fucking career or life, or how much are you thinking about the ramifications of whatever person you're making a video on before you like pull the trigger on something?
I definitely think about it. I mean, I think the level of criticism generally just depends on what they actually did, and there should be like a proportionality analysis there probably for how you're going to go about that. But with some people, I think the approach you have to take is just like, I may be covering a situation, but ultimately it's just stuff they did. And if you're being as accurate and objective as possible with the information, like with Mama Max, like whether or not I'm the one covering it, the guy is going to lose his career. I'm just informing people of the fact that he did all this shit.
Do you ever have like rules set for like, I'm not going to cover like some dumb drama between like a 5,000 YouTube or 5,000 subscriber YouTuber if it's just, even if it's like kind of juicy? Like, do you try to stick to larger ones, or are you just like following the interesting stories basically?
No, if something's really interesting, I might cover it from a smaller channel, but I will say sometimes some of the smaller stuff, it's like the return on investment for the time you put in is not that good. And the story sometimes is not that interesting. I'll get people asking me to cover the most schizo drama in the world. And sometimes it will be genuinely really fucking interesting. Like I'll find something, I'll be like, what the fuck is this? I never heard about this. Like some obscure lol count. It's like, how has nobody talked about this guy? But then sometimes there'll be a bigger drama where I'm like, this is fucking retarded. Like I just can't bring myself to care for whatever reason. So yeah, definitely that kind of thing will happen, but I guess I'm not so worried about what the audience is going to do with the information, because I think I have a responsible way of conveying it. And unfortunately, there are going to be some nut jobs in the audience who are going to take things a little far sometimes. I avoid that. I don't like those people. I don't support them in whatever they're going to do. I don't want anybody, having a subscribe to PewDiePie situation in my name. But unfortunately, there are nut jobs out there that are going to, take whatever you say and run with it and misinterpret whatever it is. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Do you worry about that? I know you don't really. You had a conversation with someone from Twitter recently who was like, so I can't just shit talk you?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. For me, I feel like it's kind of mean. Like I'll try to draw the line sometimes. It depends. But like the thing that I don't like is I'm about to do the thing that we said you should never do. I'm complaining as a large content creator. I don't think people realize sometimes how they contribute to like the dehumanization of you. So I'll deal with a person and they're one of like 10,000 people that are calling me, you know, like a pedophile, a rapist, a Nazi, like all these things. And then I'll turn like my eye of Sauron onto that person. And they're like, I can't believe you're attacking me. Like I'm a small content
Everyone
creator.
else did it.
Yeah. And it's like,
They thought they were safe with the herd.
yeah, exactly. But it's like, it's very frustrating. It's like, okay, well, I can never attack any of you, but like all 10,000 of you, plus your 150,000 fans, plus your million other people that are all getting involved can all like come at me. And it's like, yeah. So I don't know. I feel like if the person's like being pretty brutal, like, no, I'm going to be fairly, and most of the time it won't even be, you know, I don't actually care that much because most of the time it won't even be that much. Like I'll critique the person, but I'm not like going ultra hard. Very, very rarely does that happen unless they really deserve it.
Like Bunty King.
Like what?
Bunty King.
I don't even remember that guy, but I do remember that guy, and he probably did deserve it. Whatever I said,
You said KYSU inbred, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh, he deserved way worse than that.
He is inbred.
Yeah, true. But when I'm attacking people too, like when they come out and they complain about the harassment, they'll show me like 2 DMs and it'll be some guy saying like everything you said in that Destiny video was so stupid. I'm like, really? That'll be like that. So nah, I don't know. I think if my fans like genuinely started mass harassing people or like there was real harassment, I would be a lot more careful about who I attack. But I think that my audience is pretty well trained.
How do you feel about like how much of this stuff that you see? Because there's a lot of stuff about you online. I've seen on Twitter, especially recently in the past, I don't know, 4 months, there's like waves of hate against you where everybody, I feel like a bunch of people on Twitter are discovering who you are through these clips. Some of them are old clips like the incest debate or the Amos Yee thing or stuff like that. Or like the dipshit protesters clip. They're finding out about you. How much of that do you think is worth responding to, especially when it seems like the people involved, we had a conversation about this recently, they're not really acting in good faith and they don't really want to listen to what you have to say. Like, do you have like an assessment for like, this is worth responding to because it has so many views and this isn't?
I think I've actually spent a lot of time over the past few months trying to like strategize around stuff like that because it is like a significant roadblock sometimes, because if somebody comes preloaded with a certain conception, you're already playing from so far behind. Sometimes you can't even catch up.
Yeah.
There's just
like some people are like unconvincible.
I wouldn't say unconvincible, but where they're at right now, they're unconvincible. So it takes a lot of movement. I think I've kind of had a double-edged sword, kind of like you, where I'm trying to grow outside of communities. And there's pros and cons to that. You know, a pro to that is the audience you grow is your own, and you don't have to worry about like the ebb and flow of whatever community you were a part of. But a con of that is you are truly in your own quarter.
And sometimes that can like, it's kind of a frustrating thing I've realized recently. I was thinking about this on the car ride to the airport. Like sometimes I wish I was a little more schizo or a little more retarded, because you get really rewarded for behavior like that sometimes. Like the whole... Like basically like internet populism. You get rewarded so much for that in the short term.
Maybe. I think especially if you're part of communities though. If you're on your own doing it, I think people just kind of look at you like you're crazy.
Sometimes, but like I just feel like so many people looking back have like blown up so much from being wrong. And I don't know how much they knew they were wrong. I mean,
I don't know
or like dishonesty.
Yeah, but I don't think it's because they were wrong or dishonest, because they were saying the thing that the community they were growing with really wanted to hear.
Right. But sometimes I guess I'm just like I'm envious. It's like, I wish I could have that like in 3 million subscribers in like 3 months blow up.
Yeah,
which ultimately is built on like bullshit and usually comes tumbling down for them.
Yeah,
but it's like look at how fast Sneako grew on YouTube before he got banned.
Yeah,
like sometimes I look at that and I'm like, what the fuck, man.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna
be working for 5 years to get there, and it won't come tumbling down for me because I'm not spewing bullshit. I won't get banned and have to go to Rumble and lose my audience and be seen as a fucking cuck by the entire internet. I won't have that. Mm-hmm. But it's like, man, there's that explosive growth is like, you get that tang of jealousy sometimes. It's like, what the fuck? Sure. You get that?
No, because I've been here long enough to see the rise and fall of so many people. But I mean, I've
seen it too, but I just get this thought in my mind where it's like, oh,
I'm just like,
that must the adrenaline must be crazy.
You write them down in a notepad, you're like, I'll check on that guy in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. But the adrenaline from that kind of thing must just be like, so...
For those people?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure, yeah, you're getting hyped on a ton of... Yeah, but then those people suffer the worst audience capture, the worst egos, the worst... Yeah, everything. Like, it's just... Yeah, I think that the slow growth, because you kind of had it, although you spiked quite a bit in the past 2 years, but like your growth has been kind of more steady rather than just like one moment and then you kind of like come back or whatever, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is better.
I agree, it's better. Mm-hmm. I agree, it's better long term for sure. But sometimes I'm just like, man, I've never had that kind of like it's always just taken me time to get to where I am, right? And like ultimately the growth I've had over the past 2.5 years or something was built off of the previous 4, where I was just like, you know, talking to some people, but it was like very slow growth. And that's always going to be the case for me, I think, because I don't have that thing, or like I think I just don't have that like instant relatability aspect that someone like, I mean, let's say like Aiden Ross has, right? Like he blew up so fast, it's like mind numbing, and like ultimately his audience doesn't really care about what he has to say. They're kind of fucking retarded. They probably will leave him. They're leaving him in droves right now. They probably will leave him ultimately very soon. But it's just like crazy to see when someone blows up like that. It's like, what the fuck? I don't know how much of that is luck or how much of that is a calculated thing for them, but
it happens.
Yeah, it does.
For the commentary stuff, most of the stuff is negative. You ever think about that? Like, do you ever think like, God, every day when I make videos on people, it's usually highly critical. I don't say much positive stuff. Like, do you worry about that? Are you ever overwhelmed by the negativity? You're like, oh, I'm a commentator. Like, this is what we do. It's like news, basically.
I do make sure to make a positive video once in a while about someone I like. I make sure to try and... Something I've worked on is extending some charitability to the person I don't like as much as I can. Obviously, with some people, you got to be like, fuck this guy. But I'm trying to do less of like... There's a TV show I watched that informed my opinion on this a lot. Have you seen Mindhunter?
No.
No? You know anything about it?
Is it about a guy who's really smart?
No. Well...
Is he psychic?
The show is...
Is he an investigator?
The show is a semi-true history of some part of the FBI when during the 60s and 70s, we had all these serial killers, right? And there were basically crimes that were completely unexplainable. Like previously, it was like they were catching like organized crime, and it's like, okay, well, they wanted money, so that's why they killed these people or sold drugs or did these crimes. Or it was like a crime of passion, like somebody's wife cheats on them. But then they're dealing with all these serial killers like Ed Kemper or Charles Manson, who they kill people and there doesn't seem to be an explicit reason why they do something. There doesn't seem to be an explicit, like they did this to them, so they killed them, right? They're killing innocent people. And basically this show is about the start of behavioral psychology, behavioral science in the FBI, and understanding that some, or pretty much all people like that are made rather than just born like that. It does happen. But, I'm not saying that justifies their actions, but what that show kind of showed me is just trying to think a little deeper into why someone did something and understand why they do the thing they do is really valuable in preventing it from happening again, which is what they're trying to do in that show.
And in your case, preventing it from like happening to you, right? Not for the serial killer thing, but like in looking at like YouTubers, they get too full of themselves and then they come tumbling down. Like you see, like what are the mistakes they've made? How can I avoid
preventing it from happening to me, but also trying to give a deeper insight to the audience as to why things go the way they do, right? Like rather than just being like with a false accuser, like she's a dumb bitch, she's full of shit, f her, she's born evil. Like try to understand like why the f does she act this way, right? And we don't have a full behavioral profile on her. I'm not a psychologist. What I'm saying is like it's interesting to try and pick apart what they do and why they act that way, rather than just be like put them in the electric chair. Which there's a great scene in that show where they're trying to start this behavioral science unit really thing going, and they're trying to talk to police officers about it, and they're trying to interview these serial killers to understand them. And, you know, I don't know if he's the head of the FBI at the time, but he's like a higher up. He's like, what the f are you doing? The job of the FBI is not to understand these people or be their friend, is to put them in the electric chair. And the case that the main character in the show is making is like, well, by understanding why these people act the way they do, we can detect signs early and we can prevent it from happening again. And I think giving people the tools to critically analyze stuff like that and really think about these things under a lens of not just like this person should be shot off the internet, which sometimes they should, but also like why they act this way, how did their thought process go, and like how can we inform the audience to think more critically about stuff like this going forward. I think that's a really important thing. And that show impacted my view on that a little bit with other media too, but great show. You guys should watch it if you haven't seen it. Unfortunately, got canceled after season 2.
Jeez.
Directed by David Fincher, greatest director of all time, but or maybe written by him. But yeah, it's just I think as I've grown older, unfortunately for YouTube growth, I've grown less interested in super easy pot shots of just like this person sucks because they're whatever, and I've grown much more interested in, I don't know about trying to see the good in people, but trying to get like a deeper analysis of who they are and why they feel the way they do and their inhibitions. And I don't know. It's kind of shitty because not everybody cares about that. I'd say less people care about that than people care about this guy. But as I've grown older, I've grown to care a little bit more about that, I think. And not every video I do has that. Like I made a video about Casey Tron the other day that I'm going to post, which is just like Casey Tron. There's not a lot of deeper analysis there.
True.
But certainly with some of these more complicated situations, I like to try to think like, what the f happening here? You know, how do I dig deeper?
Something that I like, that I feel like artistically is, I think prequels. I think a big deal about a prequel, in my opinion, a good prequel is something that takes something that you know from the original and it shows it to you in a totally different light. So maybe there's a villain it makes you more sympathetic towards. Maybe there's a protagonist that it makes you feel more critical of. I like when prequels like give you a different view of something rather than just kind of like giving you the same thing. I thought it was interesting with your vegan gains video. It starts to feel like when people talk about people online, it's like, oh, here's the 497th video on why vegan gains is a sociopath, or here's the 700th video on why Boogie is a piece of shit, or here's like another video on DSP.
But it doesn't really explain why.
Yeah, not only that, but it's also, it starts to feel like people repeating like Wikipedia. It's like the same like 10 talking points like over and over and over and over again. It's like, what is the point of even this video?
It's profitable. It's easy. And that's why.
Yeah, because it's like the lowest tier, like, oh shit, another video shitting on this dude. Like, you just eat popcorn and watch, And
I get that, and I will definitely engage in that behavior in the future. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, you know, with the vegan gains video, the thing that I found that, and like doing the video about you or some of the other stuff I've filmed that we're going to be posting, is just like, I've grown less interested in just like the easy dunks, and I've grown much more interested in like trying to meet these people and talk to them and understand what the fuck is right or wrong with them, or why people feel the way they do about them. I found that much more rewarding than I think just making a video where it's just like, this guy. It's creatively fulfilling for me. And sometimes I wish it wasn't, because I feel like it's not super conducive to short-term success. I feel like I get a lot more out of just like misinterpreting someone's arguments or be like, this guy is a piece of shit, bye. But I'm trying to do that stuff more often because I just find it really personally enriching and interesting, and I have a lot of fun doing it, and I think the audience appreciates it too.
Are there still like big YouTubers or old heroes or just interesting people that you want to meet that you feel like you don't have access to yet?
I don't know about heroes, but there's definitely really high profile people I find really interesting. The Paul brothers are big ones.
You ever try to reach out to them?
No, I don't think I'm at that size.
Be on the podcast, you could do it.
Impulsive?
Is that what it's called?
I cannot be on that.
Why not?
The thing is, I probably would be very critical of them, but I just find them really fascinating. Like their story is almost like it's like a Greek epic or something, or it's like with you and Hasan. And then Vosh is just like this loser on the side. Like, it's so interesting to me that like you started streaming, you get big doing it, you have an audience. He comes in, he gets introduced. He agrees with you on some issues. You do debate review with him. You criticize him a little bit. He doesn't take it that well, I don't think, the debate criticism, but he takes it better than he would now. And then he like grows a little bigger. He gets a bigger audience. And then you guys have this like schism point. And then he like becomes bigger than you ever were for a while. And then he starts dipping in views, and now you're still growing. And it's like this weird like tragedy of like ideals where like you guys were aligned, but then you separated and now you kind of hate each other. Like you're constantly like throwing pot shots, but he won't talk to you. And you want to talk to him. And you used to be on talk. Like, it's so fascinating to me. With the Paul brothers, it's like, there are two brothers from the same family who both became wildly successful doing YouTube stuff. Well, firstly, they did Vine. They transitioned from Vine to YouTube successfully. They became some of the biggest people on the site. And then they expanded that into the entertainment industry. Now Logan Paul has Prime, which is one of the biggest drink brands in the world. It's making him obscene money, him and KSI. Jake Paul is like from what I understand, he's a pretty good boxer. I've seen him box.
Regardless of whether he's good or bad, these like matches are pulling in like tons of money. They're selling so many ticket sales and everything on these, And he's getting to box, is it fucking Mike Tyson now?
Yeah.
Is that the next match? Yeah, like Jesus. Yeah.
He's like the most famous boxer ever.
Arguably in the world, in all of history,
Yeah. It's so fascinating to me. And like between them as well, like they have like this drama, and it's like trying to figure out how much of it is real versus fake. And like back in the day, Jake dates this girl, and then he cheats on her and she leaves him, and then Logan fucks her, and then he like brags about it in a song. And then there's like documentaries made about them by like Shane Dawson, and like there was a Netflix one about Jake. And yeah, it's just these people are just super fascinating, and that's why like for the longest time I think I had this approach where like people would say it's drama, it's pointless, and I'd be like, yeah, whatever, like sure. But I think now I'm starting to I want to start making the case that like YouTube drama, if you cover it the right way, doesn't have to be just like TMZ popcorn bullshit. There can be more to it. It's like understanding what makes people tick. It's understanding what makes people do the things they do. It's ultimately an extension of politics. I mean, not everything is political, but understanding why people from different positions interact the way they do, how certain people garner public support. It's like a meta-analysis of all that. And I find that super, super interesting, and interpersonal relationships are super interesting. And I'm not a psychologist. Human psychology, when I watch TV shows, is super interesting.
One people that I think that people have really hard time understanding when they look at like documentaries or they study history is you think that it's just like, oh, well, from 1994 to 1996, here's all the facts. But that's not a good documentary. It's not a good study of anything. Like what you're really looking for is like a story. And that's just the process of picking what you want to talk about is already like a huge form of editorialism. And that you can take any of these YouTubers, especially, people like the Paul brothers, I guess like me and Hasan, or any number, like even the well-known like the lol cows or whatever. Like telling a certain story about these people, choosing what you want to talk about, and then hitting that angle, I think is really interesting.
Finding the through line.
Yeah, like I was critical before people who want to make the same documentary over and over again, but like that one, I don't remember the name of the guy, but you know what I'm talking about. The really good one about Boogie.
Mike Klum.
Maybe, yeah. Yes. That was a really interesting, really good. Yeah. And that's like a matter of not just like seeing everything and reporting everything the most accurate way possible. It was like picking like, what do I want this story to be about? And then like collecting original footage, like bringing up relevant stuff from the past and then going through. And that, I think there's not enough appreciation for that process sometimes. Like people just want to like, especially when you're making videos every day, it's like, I'm just reporting on the facts of every single micro event and I don't really care about any through line or anything like that.
Well, you can't, on a day-to-day basis, it's very hard to do that.
Yeah, it's impossible.
It's impossible. It takes, months, if not years sometimes. And
there's not as much of a reward for it too.
No, there's not. The reason why that guy's able to do it is he has his own like production company where he makes a bunch of money, so he doesn't have to worry about it. That stuff isn't rewarded enough, but I think it could be. I think if you do it well enough, you can do things to cater the content you make that's like watchable enough, is clickable enough, but it also explores deeper themes and thoughts and ideas, and it can get a conversation started, and it can be artistically fulfilling for whoever's making it. And I don't think of myself really as an artist on a day-to-day basis, but I guess in a way that is what I do. And I like the art of making a documentary about someone and like trying to figure out like what the is going on, what's going on, why are they like this? Not just like, I mean, the slam dunks, the funny stuff is hilarious. Like you can't deny that. I like that too. But trying to be like, what the is wrong with this guy, or like what made him this way, or like could he be different given different circumstances, is really fascinating, and I like it a lot. Which is why I've enjoyed talking to people like Vegan Gains so much recently, because it's not just like making a video. Like back in the day, Leafy used to make videos about him. He was popular back then. He'd be like, this guy's still psychotic, 35-year-old man. Like stuff like that is funny. And I found it a lot funnier when I was 14. But I found it a lot more enriching to like make a video where I'm like, what the was your past? Why are you like this? I like that a lot. It's really cool, I think.
Is it interesting, or do you consider it all that you used to just make videos kind of reporting on stuff, but now your videos become part of the narrative? So like you might be reporting on something relating to Super Mega, but you making a video on it has now become part of the narrative. So when you're covering stuff into the future about it, your prior coverage is part of essentially the story of what you're covering now. Whereas before, as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, like you're just like on the sidelines basically screaming. So like you're having a direct impact on the trajectory of whatever story it is you're talking about.
It's
like,
cool, but I'm trying not to be like egotistical about that, because I don't want to view my videos as like they're gonna have influence. I don't want to view it as like I'm gonna have a hand in the story. I want to view it more as just like telling the story as is, giving my opinion as is, and then whatever happens. I don't want to feel like I need to be involved in these situations or get like so emotionally invested that I'm like feeling like I need to change the tides or something. Because ultimately I don't know any of these people. I was not a fan of Matt and Ryan from Super Mega. I'm not going to be, probably anyway. They posted a few funny videos recently, but yeah, like
you don't consider at all that like it's possible that the reason why they came back was because of
that's definitely that's
me too, but yeah, like largely maybe because of like your coverage or you're pushing that side of the story so
that's
hard.
Definitely part of it, but I don't want to pat myself on the back for that. It's like
I'm not even thinking necessarily patting yourself on the back, because there could be times where you get it wrong as well. Yeah, and it's like fuck.
I mean, I'm glad that they were able to come back given what happened. Yes, but it's not like seeing them come back I was like popping champagne. It was like, oh well, that's probably what should have happened regardless of my input.
Okay,
like someone else could have filled my shoes in that way, I think.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I don't want to be too emotionally invested, because I think when you are, you can make poor judgment calls, and that can lead to bad journalism. There's a great movie, once again by Fincher, called The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Have you seen this?
Is that the one where she castrates the guy?
Yes. It's about a journalist who f***ed up a story in the beginning because he's too emotionally invested.
Okay. Was she like the secret bad guy or something? Or
No, she was just a hot girl that was good at hacking and helped him solve a case.
oh, maybe I didn't.
The story is
watch
about a journalist that he reports on a billionaire,
it. Okay.
and he gets the story wrong, and he gets sued, and he loses his business basically. And then he gets a call from another billionaire who used to work with this guy he's trying to expose. He's like, "Hey, come solve this family murder for me, and I'll give you what you need to fuck this guy over." And he solves a murder. He gets what he needs to fuck the guy over, but it's like a long process of like retribution. And the moral of the story is not like, well, he could have gotten the guy in the beginning because he was right. It's like you have to do the right process. You have to actually have the information down pat to get. I mean, that's not the only moral of the fucking story, but that's part of my takeaway. It's like the conclusion is very important, but the process to get there is very, very important. Like, I don't want to just make videos where I happen to be right.
Sure.
I want to make videos where like I know I'm right.
The process is always more important. Like how I was recently completely exonerated with my takes on Daisy Chen, and I was right about every part of it because my process was flawless.
Your process was flawless.
It was flawless.
There's no hubris in that at all.
I know people.
You're a people person.
I am a people person.
People.
Yeah. Wow.
How long are we even going?
I'm gonna guess 2 hours.
Has it been 2 hours?
Hour and a half.
Okay.
Hour and a half. Wow, we started real late today. You really f***ed it up.
Yeah, I f***ed it up.
You did.
From your amazing production crew who had everything ready to go?
Well, the problem was it was so hard to make you look like a f***ing human on camera. We had to like switch out basically everything and do the lights. You've got these huge bushy eyebrows. I feel like I'm watching FLCL, and yeah, we had to do like filtering.
FLCL?
Yeah.
Isn't it Fooly Cooley?
Yeah.
FLCL.
That's what you call it in Japanese.
I call your mom in Japanese. The great white shark.
What?
Anyway,
what does that mean?
Okay, moving on because she bites my. Anyway,
why would she do that? What are you talking about? Anyway,
I had bite marks.
Despacito.
For the perspective of content, do you ever worry that it's hard to find an entry point to your stuff? Like when you're covering these big issues like Israel and Palestine, I feel like there's like a big arc that you go on, and it can be hard for a new viewer to get into it if they haven't been watching for a long time. Do you ever worry about that kind of stuff and like audience acquisition? Like, are you just too deep in these issues, and do you go too far with like the research and stuff, or is that not something you're really worried about?
I think there's a couple things at play. The one thing I've thought about is maybe it would be nice if I'm leaving a topic to like do a full write-up and like hear all my thoughts and everything, but it's like a totally different style of content to me, like doing a formal write-up and then putting everything in one place. Although maybe it's good because some of my manifestos end up getting referenced later on, so maybe having like here's a big write-up on what I feel about a topic as I leave it would be a good idea. People suggested it. But another thing that's kind of cheating is one of the ways that I stay relevant is just because the topics I cover are political, which is as long as you cover the next political topic, you kind of always have that relevancy. So even if I get really deep into the Israel-Palestine process now, whatever the next issue that comes up, and we'll get deep into that, and then we kind of go from issue to issue. I think once I started medication, I started to realize that my streams have changed significantly, which I kind of joked about in the beginning, having to deal with it. But now I like realize there's
like way more focus.
Yeah. Whereas before I'm like, I could play games and like kind of like have, like I haven't had, I don't think I'll ever top.
There hasn't been like, I feel like there hasn't been stream drama in a little bit.
I don't think I'm ever going to top the Lav Mr. Girl shit ever.
You don't want to?
I mean, I think I'd have to stop taking my medicine again and start like talking to a bunch of crazy people again. But right now, like when people get crazy, I'm just like, okay, I'm not talking to you anymore. Like stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Like, I feel like with the Sneako thing, like you were willing to talk to him, obviously, but you were way more frustrated.
For a little bit,
and like when people pitched the idea of you debating him, you were like, what the f*** are we debate about?
Yeah, because it also feels dumb too, because like everything is like, it's weird because everything simultaneously got more important and less important at the same time. Like if you were to argue with like Redpill existed on the internet like 7 or 8 years ago, but it has nothing to do with the red pill that exists today. Like before, it was just like about like how to get girls and how women suck sometimes, and maybe you like don't like women or whatever, and that's kind of right. But that's it. But now if you're red pill, you're also like a Muslim, and you like want to vote for Donald Trump, and you like hate climate change and Jewish space lasers, and like you have to have like an opinion about everything now. So
the evolution of that term has also been super weird though, because when I remember red pill being a thing was on 4chan in 2016, and that meant you were racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever the fuck
Oh, maybe,
you know?
'cause some
like it was like
people-
it was like an alt-right thing.
I got associated with Trump a little bit, like, oh, you red pilled on things. But when you were in like the online like dating communities, like the MGTOWs and the Red Pillars and
guys
the
were awesome.
MRAs, and
They
were,
rocks.
it was just different. And so now, so it feels weird that like if Sneako was a guy who was like, oh yeah, like I want to debate about like dating stuff, I was like, okay, fine. But because that's like, it's not important, and it's like it's a not important debate about a not important thing. But now it's like not important debates about really important things. Like, I don't need Sneako's take on Israel Palestine. Like, this kid is retarded. Like, why would anybody listen about anything? And like, he pretends to be a Muslim and he doesn't know anything about the religion, so why the would I care about that? Like, he pretends to have these really strong opinions on like court stuff and he doesn't know any. So it's like now everybody has like all these huge debates on these really important topics, but they literally know nothing about it. So the interest of me is like, even with a lot of the mainstream political figures now on this Israel Palestine shit, it's like nobody has any idea about any of the shit they're talking about. So the subject matter is you guys are all engaged in kind of like the rhetorical dunking games, I guess, like the stuff that you said that you're not as interested in. I'm like, oh, like it'd be really interesting to have like a 2-hour debate on the origins of like the 6-Day War, and you know, and it's just like not that. So I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Have you thought about like maybe doing more pre-recorded content? Like, I feel like you would get a bunch of views if you did. I mean, it seems lowbrow to you probably now. It's not intellectually interesting, but like watching the cringiest pro-Palestine TikToks and being like, this is wrong, in like a pre-recorded format, or like doing that on stream and having that edited into like a funny video. Like, I feel like stuff like that, like you could reach a greater audience, and then you can bring in more people. And it's just like, it's way more palatable and easier to get in than like the 5th debate about the 6-Day War, like you said, or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I have to, I need to sit down and actually do it. The problem is I'm always like working on so many things and like starting projects and trying to figure it out. And then like, it sucks because streaming is so easy to go back to. Like, if I push a button and I've got like 11,000 live viewers, like, fuck me, right? Like, why would I not just continue to do this? So yeah, I need to build out more structure for alternative segments. I think it's actually really important. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I feel like we talk about Sneako a lot, you and I, but whenever we talk, but it kind of makes sense. I'm starting to draw a conclusion about Sneako. Here's a thought exercise we want to go through.
Yeah.
What if he was retarded the whole time? What if in the beginning his thought process seemed complex because it was more aligned with you and you assume a lot about his viewpoints, but in reality he was just parroting shit that he thought was right at the time and he thought would get him views or whatever, or he thought was just like the right thing in the zeitgeist, and then he changed that because he's been I feel like for him to be an intelligent person at this point, he's been in it so deep for so long. Like, he's been on the Red Pill stuff for a long time. I thought he would like kind of turn around by now, but like the latest debate showing was like so embarrassing. Like, he has time to think about this stuff. He's had conversations with like the Muhammad
Hijab.
That's a crazy.
It is a crazy name.
If I was racist, that's the name I would pick for a brown guy.
True.
Anyway,
Exactly. Yeah.
like he's had
Be like calling me
conversations.
Sombrero Gusano. Like, that's my full name. Yeah.
Yeah, based.
Yeah.
He's had conversations with him. Anyway, he's had conversations with him
Okay.
about the age of consent for Muslims. He's had conversations with him about like the prophet and like Aisha, the 9-year-old or whatever. And for some reason, he still like didn't come away with that with like an understanding. Like, he wasn't able to go to you and like communicate his thoughts.
I think something that I realized that is, it's really challenging is I go through these stages of thinking people are stupid or not stupid or stupid or not stupid. And it's generally it's a long trend downwards in terms of like hating everybody. But the more I think about it, and the more I talk to people like really one-on-one, the more I kind of think people are actually pretty smart. I think people get things pretty well. But I think that before the intellectual process starts, there's a really big social barrier. And that social thing is like mind destroying. And it's kind of like having like depression or anxiety or whatever, where you tell a person with depression, like, why not just like get up and like do something? And the person's like, I don't think you understand. I don't even have the desire to like be happy. Like, it's not about me like not knowing how to be.
Don't you
Like,
think
I
it
don't
would be
care.
socially advantageous for him to debate you well?
No. I think that what's advantageous, because there's so much more reward for him to just kind of like follow and tell people what they want to hear on this thing. Like, when he came on to that podcast or call or whatever to talk to XQC, he was only there looking for easy dunks, right? You could tell by the way he was talking. But for him to actually like sit down and study like Islam and shit, he would have to actually care about it. But he doesn't really care about it. He just like the social validation he gets from following it and saying he cares about it.
There's this crazy moment in that when you ask him like, why is fucking a kid wrong? And he's like, because it's wrong. I mean, because God says it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, he corrects himself.
Yeah. But even the correction's not good. Because then I think my next question is like, okay, well, if God said it was okay to do it tomorrow, would that make it okay?
It's not good, but it's like him like realigning himself with a belief system he thinks he's supposed to have. But this is like, once again, this is the frustrating thing, is like, I feel like in the old videos there was at least this like facade of like him having a thought process. Like he would make arguments.
I don't think that was I mean, you've watched a lot of his early stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's genuinely really good.
Yes.
It's really good.
Yes.
Like I simped hard for him when I first met him.
Yeah,
I would have girls over at my apartment. Like, we're gonna watch Sneako videos right now because you need to understand how smart this guy was.
They were
okay?
great. It's not even just smart, like just artistic.
They're insightful, and they're artistic too. Yeah, they were shot well. He does this like weird wide angle lens shit that is kind of shouldn't work, but it does, and it's like his style.
He had
and
these weird little like animations and drawings and cool editing stuff, and like he had like musical like segments and like bits and stuff. Like they were really good.
Yeah, and he walked the line early that we talked about of being like you're humble enough to realize when you're making mistakes, but you're arrogant enough to like be like very forward about it. Like you know, like And
he was very honest about like
his faults and everything.
Yes, but now it's just like I feel like
he became like every single thing that he would have ever, it feels like, hated in any of those videos. But the reason why I think is because of the there was this sounds so mean. I don't want to bring this up. Never mind. Sometimes you see a person who is like doing content and you see it and you're like, this is good content. And you're trying hard and you just haven't figured out how to make it work yet, but it's like good. And they're grinding and grinding and grinding. And then they turn what?
I didn't say anything.
You're laughing. Okay. They turn towards something a little bit different that I don't want to say it's like a sellout, but it's like clearly not in the style of what they were good at. But then they get so much social reward in that direction. And I think in that person's mind, they get rewired very quickly. We're like, okay, well, I was working on this before and nobody cared, nobody liked it. And I'm still like the same person, but I am going to veer off in this direction. And the direction that you veer off can become very self-reinforcing very quickly. And then you get captured completely. And
so do you think he thinks the only way he could forge it forward by this point is by having that same mentality?
Yeah, because it's funny because in a way, you and Sneako are very similar, but you didn't have that explosive moment of doing something different, and he did, because he also started when he was 14, I think, right? Maybe earlier.
He was young,
and he grinded, he made content for a long time, and he was doing pretty good. But then as soon as he like dipped into, something happened when he started dipping into that Redpill space, and he made that second channel. He got like 500,000 subs, I think, in like a couple months. It was like insane. It was
super quick.
And when you've been grinding and grinding and grinding, and now you got that huge blow up moment. And remember, you said you're like, yeah, you got to be jealous a little bit. And it's like he was, but he was the guy that blew up. Yeah. And now he's like, well, maybe this is right, and I'm a truth sayer. And then he starts fighting against, what is that, Nick is not green dude, and he does the like slap thing, and then he gets banned for it. And he's like, oh well, these guys are against me and these other guys are accepting him, and he had this huge blow up and he's getting these deals. And I think once you get pushed that far down,
you think his like skills of self-reflection and analysis and like ego checking just completely went out the window?
I would say yes, but I would also say I think for most people in that circumstance it would be really hard. Like, we all would like to think, everybody likes to think that in like 1942 you would be the one German who would be like, no, f you, like I would fight the Nazis with the Jews.
Yeah,
or you'd be like the guy in the 1700s who's like, I wouldn't have slaves, I would tell those people they're wrong.
But that's just not
We'd
real.
all like to think that, yeah, but given that situation, I don't know, would you? You'd hope so. And when you look at Sneako, it's like, could you resist the pressure? Like, if you had been grinding YouTube for 6 years and you'd made $100,000 in 6 years, and then in 5 months you have a $100,000 month.
Yeah.
Like, what does that do to a person? Are you ever like, okay, hold on, I was probably like getting too crazy. Let's like walk it back a lot to your $1,000 a month paycheck or whatever before. That's
it was a slower thing for me for sure, which I in some ways appreciate, but also at the same time, it's like, seeing the chat move that fast back then is crazy. The chat's a little slow now, but back then it was like, holy shit. I remember watching him blow up, and I didn't really like what he was doing, but I was almost just happy about that he was getting seen by so many people. Yeah. In the early days, I was like, what the fuck? I didn't find the streams that captivating or interesting, but it was cool to see him blow up. And then, obviously things turned sour pretty quick within 4 or 5 months or something like that. But yeah, his old stuff was very good. There was a moment I remember early on, I don't know if I've talked about this with you, but he was talking about like Hasan had reacted to one of his videos.
It was about to change Sneako forever. He got into a beef with Hasan, who is a massive political Twitch streamer who represents leftist ideals. Funny thing about these two beefing is they both really like Bernie Sanders and probably would have voted for him. Anyways, Hasan reacted to one of Sneako's videos called How to View Women, where Sneako takes on the role of a man who's insecure, can't talk to women, and wants to not end up like an incel. The visuals consisted of him filming women from a distance, which was supposed to be ironic, but it seems like Hasan didn't understand the hypothetical perspective Sneako was creating and just resorted to calling him an incel.
Bro, this dude was like, this is healthy. This is a healthy way to do things. I am going to go and film random women and harass them. Dude, this is wow.
Obviously, Sneako wasn't a fan of Hasan's reaction.
Hasanabi's right. Yes, ha ha ha, toxic man. I don't like him. He's creepy. But you're not saying anything about the video. You're just insulting me. Aren't you the political streamer? Say something political.
And had called him an incel and had totally misinterpreted what he said. I think it was a video like how people view women or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
And Hasan reacts to it, just had to totally like, he just didn't get it because it's Hasan. And Sneako, he was very frustrated and he expressed openly, he was like, I realized that Hasan gets way more rewarded than I do for making this video. Like I try to make like an honest video that's like actually interpreting the world and like not necessarily being controversial for the sake of it, but just like speaking my mind. And Hasan can just watch the video and make 3 times the ad revenue and donos or whatever from just watching it being like, this guy's an incel, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually he just kind of took that on. He became that because he realized it was more profitable.
Yeah, because it was like what we were talking about earlier. I think it's just really, really, really hard. Like the 2 huge moments that are so frustrating is like, so I go on Twitter. I probably shouldn't have said this, but I think a week ago, do you know Casey Tron? Call her fat whore. I said she smoked a bong with her pussy.
She does. Wait, did you say that?
Yes.
Did you delete that tweet? I didn't see that one.
Yeah, I didn't tweet it. She did. But I probably shouldn't have said it. But like I did. But like, so she sees that and then she runs to her Discord.
Called you a pedophile, right?
And she's called me a pedophile. She says I abandoned my kid. She calls me an abusive partner. She says I'm a rapist. She said like a billion horrible things about me. And it's annoying that like, and I understand like you have to walk a higher path, but like when you're like wading through the sewage of so much filth and personal insults and degrading and like all the death threats and the pictures of my, Instagram stories of my son that people send me and all the crazy things that people say, the videos that everybody had, people making fan art of like Melina fucking ABBA in front of me and shit. And I'm like, bro, you're drawing this? And then I'll say some shit where it's like,
I think those people are just,
yeah. And then I'll say some shit about somebody, and then like there'll be like 2 posts on my subreddit. There've been 2 in the past month where like Destiny called somebody fat. It made me feel really bad. And I'm like, and it's like, I have to be so much more careful. Or like right now over like, I'll have like a 6-hour debate with ostensibly the most scholarly people about Israel-Palestine. And their entire side is like, oh yeah, he called Destiny a moron. It's so funny, blah, blah, blah. And then my audience will be like, when Destiny said this thing at 2 hours and 34 minutes, they actually didn't use that. And it's like,
they have it a lot with the Finkelstein thing.
Yeah, where like my audience is like pretty critical of me, which is good. I like it, but it's so much harder when you're fighting against other people whose audiences are like on their knees, like jerking off with every single thing. It's like,
they're not even looking to listen. They just want to see an easy dunk.
And I'm super sympathetic. I'm not sympathetic. I'm empathetic with Sneako when he's like, well, I put in all this work to do this stuff, and then like the one Noah Samson or Hasan like does a drive-by video on me. They get 3 times the views. It took them 5 minutes to react to my video that it took me like 5 days to put together. Like, why the fuck am I even wasting my time doing this? And I'm empathetic towards that. You really have to like gear your mind in a direction to like be resistant towards that and continue to move forward. It's really hard.
I think what you have to recognize is that dishonesty breeds contempt for the audience long term.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, wait, breeds contempt like from the creator to the audience, to the audience to the creator, or what do you mean?
The audience to the creator.
Sure.
And I think you get very quick short-term gains from dishonesty. It's like steroids.
Yeah, but one of the issues, I thought about this a lot too, is that you don't really remember the people who were your haters. And even though they all have short-term success, there's always so many of them that keep popping up. Like I'll have to sit back and I'm like every now and then like, okay, hold on. Who was shitting on me like 10? You know who Naked Ape was?
Yes.
Yeah, or Tonka Saw or
Naked Ape was based.
Yeah, fuck you. So
the most delicious sniveling cuck on all of Twitch.
So I'll have to sit back sometimes.
The most delicious specimen. That guy made the best video about you ever.
He made videos. He was responsible for a lot of the early like ad homs against me. But I have to sit back and remember like, okay, who were these people? They don't exist anymore, so I know they failed. But it's not like you get to sit back and celebrate that because there's a whole new wave of dipshits.
I definitely have that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, well, fuck. Like
sometimes I'll remember like I'll just try to think back to like 5 years ago and be like, did I think this was a big deal back then? Like, did I care that people on Twitter said shit like this?
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the moment I did, but then like 2 years later, looking back, I was like, oh, it didn't matter. And then 2 years after that, I'm like, what the f is going on?
Yeah.
And it's like, you could have a very short-term memory with that, but you just have to have like a long-term view of things. This is a very long game if you want it to be.
Yeah.
You have to play it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot though. Do you think Sneako will ever come back?
Hopefully.
I feel like if he did, I feel like the videos would be super interesting. Like, could you imagine 19-year-old Sneako going on this like journey and then making videos in that manner again?
The perspective he would have now, given everything that's happened, being banned from YouTube, meeting Andrew Tate,
Donald Trump, I think. He
Yeah.
at least got a picture with him and being part of Kanye West. Like, yeah, it would be crazy.
Like, I don't even necessarily want to see him like not be red pill. I just want to see him like have a complex thought process again. And that would be so cool. I don't think he's going to do it anytime soon. I don't think his audience wants that right now. But I would love if he would do that, because those videos with the stuff he's experienced, if he could actually stop and think about it, would be so interesting. I mean, the Kanye stuff, like talking about the Kanye stuff in like a long video that's like artistic in the way his old videos were.
Yeah.
That would be like...
Because, yeah, you've got the little Haitian immigrant 14-year-old boy making YouTube videos who, like, what is it, 7 years later, is now working in a Kanye West political campaign after becoming public enemy #1, like, banned on YouTube. Like, yeah, it's a
This is what I'm
crazy
talking about with
story.
the arc. Like, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's a crazy story. That's an insane
And he has,
story.
I feel like he has like 10 of those probably.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
The Donald Trump stuff, the Kanye stuff, the Andrew Tate stuff, the flying around the world, going to fucking Mecca as a fucking Muslim, trying to live stream and getting kicked out of mosques for having tattooed. Yeah, he's got, yeah. Yeah, damn.
But it's just like he has no deeper analysis right now.
Other than just like, Allah is my, yeah,
Yeah,
Christ.
disappointing.
We'll see.
Wasted potential for now. We'll see.
Do you ever worry about, we don't have to talk about this too much. I know he's your hero. Epstein. No. Do you know the Sam Hyde guy? So I like Sam Hyde's stuff. I like his comedy. I think he's really funny. I feel like his association, the iDubbz video was one of my, I just think it was one of the funniest fucking things of all time. iDubbz showing up at that.
His cut was really good.
It was
excellent.
It was, yes. Like, he does the line of like satire and irony and like high effort, not just like being a retard all the time.
He is an artist.
Yes.
I've gotten a lot of valuable advice from his videos about artistry.
Yeah.
About, like, the perfect is the enemy of the good. Someone else said that, but I got that from him. Like, he passed that on to his audience, and I took that. And like,
Sure.
my hiring process for like, you know, just like dropping your ego and learning to like have people help you out with content, like that's stuff that came from him. He has a lot of valuable advice.
Yeah. Also, maybe kind of crazy. Do you ever worry for some of the people that you follow, or do you ever view them differently? Do you ever think differently based on like some of the political stuff that comes out, or you try to like totally separate out like there's stuff I've learned from this guy, or I can appreciate this, and I don't care about any of the whatever other stuff he's getting into, or whatever he says it's like serious or not serious, or
I don't know. I mean, if people want to criticize him for that, I think that's totally valid. I'm not going to be like Sam Hyde defender and say like, you know, he's not a political guy. But you know, obviously there's a lot of valuable advice I've taken from him. And I've spoken to him and he's given me some decent advice. And so, yeah, I don't know. If people want to shit on him, I mean, that's totally justified. But
when you think about like people like him, or you say like you also watch like Leafy a lot early on and everything too, do you ever feel pressure, or do people ever try to pressure you to come out and like, you watch this guy, or you signed off on this and now he said that and you need to make a statement about that, or you need to like make a video like being critical of that? Do you ever feel pressure for that?
People definitely will say stuff like that, but it's not really my audience. People outside of the audience. I think if anybody does something wrong, if somebody does something wrong, you're totally justified in criticizing them. That's totally fair. But ultimately, I don't think it's necessarily my responsibility to call out everybody. I don't think it is. And I think just because I have taken something good from someone doesn't mean that the bad doesn't exist and you can't talk about that. And you know, I think that the artist versus the art, or creator versus, you know, the creation or whatever, is an interesting conversation to have, where like, this doesn't exactly apply here. But there's been people I've liked before, I've listened to their music, like Mindless Self-Indulgence is a band I liked a lot growing up. They're really good. And then it came out, there was like some lawsuit where like the guy was like grooming a 15-year-old girl or something, allegedly. And that was like shitty, but I remember when that happened, a lot of people on Twitter were like, stop listening to their music, you can't enjoy the art anymore. And I remember thinking like, on one hand, I understand not wanting to like give that person money or something by streaming on Spotify. But at the same time, like I feel like it's okay to enjoy art from bad people. I feel like it's okay to take whatever their perspective is. And I'm not saying you should agree with it or something, but you know, oftentimes bad people make good art. Bad people make interesting art. Their perspective of being someone who's like a shitty person and relied on by society is what informs making it good and making it like honest.
Is controversy something you consider at all when you're deciding on like the next piece, whether you want something that's really controversial or not controversial at all?
Yeah, I think it's bad to have 10 controversial things in a row. I think it's good to like space it out a little bit, you know? And your audience I don't think your audience, at least mine, I don't think they want to see me constantly at war with everyone. I think it's good to have like, you know, break periods when you're just chilling out, you're doing stuff. And then you go back on the next offensive. And also, I don't want to feel like I need to like get to the next fucking crazy shit to go after someone. I don't want to feel like I'm in a position where I need to be fighting everyone at all times to like keep the audience interested. Yeah.
I feel like that's a thing as well. It took me a while to learn that, and I'm not necessarily following my own advice right now. Although for Israel-Palestine, you just end up fighting literally the entire fucking world. But you see that creators that start like a downward spiral, usually it starts from, I'll say like you should never be fighting more than one community at a time. When you start realizing that you're fighting like 2, 3, 4 communities, the problem is like fighting one community might be like difficulty level 5. Fighting 2 communities is like difficulty level 30, and fighting like 3 communities is like difficulty level like 700. Like stuff will spiral and escalate so quickly. And when you get to those like elevated states of anxiety and like frustration, it's very easy to make a misstep. And now you've like really fucked up, and there are more eyes on you than ever fucking before. And yeah, that's a really hard thing. And sometimes it's what you're saying is like super true too. And that like, if you want to cover controversial stuff, that's good, but it's good to like pad it out. Like you don't want to do like 7 fucking crazy videos in a row. Like you could like space things out a little bit more. People will take it in kind of like, waves.
The problem with the total war stuff too is like, you just get yourself in a position where you accrue this hate audience who's constantly waiting for you to fuck up, and they're waiting for the next thing. And you'll just have this like opposition that you're dealing with constantly who's waiting for you. Yeah. And you kind of have that
with the gripers and the lefties right now, the red-brown alliance. There's an annoying like pipeline where a lot of gripers, because they're mad that I don't do content with Nick anymore, they watch my stuff and they wait to clip it, and then when they clip it, Hasan will always retweet it because he hates me. And
is that real?
Yes, it's been so like, do you know like Censored Man or any of these guys on Twitter? Like Hasan will literally watch these Nazi accounts and then he'll retweet them or go over like compilations made of me by them on his stream. Like, have you ever heard or seen on Twitter like Destiny can't find Palestine on a map, or Destiny thinks Erdogan is the president of Israel, or Destiny doesn't know who Assad is? All of those attacks are Graper clips from my stream that got amplified by Hasan and other lefties.
I see.
Yeah. And then having when you have like the people in the rosters who are constantly waiting to like get every little thing, it's a lot. Yeah.
Well, the problem with that also, it just opens you up to a lot more misinterpretations, right? And like when you're covering controversial stuff, it's like first controversial thing, a bunch of people disagree, they might move on. Second controversial thing, they're like, wait, is this a pattern of behavior? And then
that's why even false allegations.
The third time is like, now you're the guy.
Yeah, that's why even like a false allegation or somebody being wrong about something is so damaging, because it makes the second and third one a lot easier to believe. Like even if the first one is complete and total bullshit. Yeah. And
I've definitely noticed I'm developing a bit of an anti-fan community on Reddit, on Twitter, and so many of the interpretations are so dishonest. But it's just me trying to understand like, how did I get here? And I think when you cover a lot of controversial stuff in a row that people aren't willing to watch, or there's a lot of bad faith actors, you're going to be in a position where you're going to have a very hard time pushing past that to a certain extent. Time heals a lot of these wounds, as you know from your career. You've had
the most important thing is to always keep rolling forward. It's like the one advantage you can have on anybody else.
You can't dwell on it too much. You can't just sit on it forever. And you know, creators can ultimately make it out of anything, is what I've learned, if they really try.
They keep making content. Yeah.
But yeah, you don't want to be in a position where you're constantly at war, and then the audience is expecting you to be at war. It's like, why aren't you fighting this guy and this guy and this guy? Which is once again why I don't cover everything. It's like, I can't cover everything. First of all, I'm one guy, but also I don't want the audience to expect that I'm going to cover every single little thing and like be their personal army.
It's also hard too, because like most people like don't say anything, and then some people say things here, and then some people say things here, and because you're making content, it's hard to remember that there's a lot of people in the middle, and instead it just feels like there's one guy that's always criticizing you. So like when I've done a lot of these debates on the foreign policy stuff recently for the Israel-Palestine stuff, I've been pretty like kitty gloves, like very passive, like very whatever. And so my audience being very critical, like, why didn't you call Finkelstein out for this? Why did you do that? Why did you do that? It's like, okay, fine. And then so now I like on some more recent debates, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be a lot more critical of them. And it's like, why are you being so mean to him? Why are we being so unprofessional? And it's like, and I have to remember, it's like most people are probably here, and then there's always gonna be like a guy here and a guy here. But it's hard sometimes when you look at criticisms coming from audiences, you just see it as like one person. It's like, why the fuck can't you're like talking to one schizophrenic guy who never is like happy with what you're doing? And it's like, yeah, it's very frustrating.
It's very frustrating.
It's very frustrating.
But we're looking to the future.
We are. YouTube drama is going after you. You're going down on that subreddit. Yeah.
Just like James Somerton went down.
Who was that guy? Did he kill himself?
I mean, he said that. I don't think he did.
Oh, but you don't think he did? Wow, that's pretty brave of you to say that.
We've seen no direct evidence he did.
Oh, okay. So you need pictures of it.
Yes.
Okay. That must be why your Me Too coverage is so brutal.
Exactly. I need pictures of it.
What's the next big thing you're working on? Where can people find you?
TurkeyTom on YouTube, Tom Dark on YouTube, Tom IRL on YouTube, and ANONBIRDD on Twitter. Tom Dark on Instagram. Lots of big videos coming out. Stay tuned. The lol cow iceberg is coming, okay? You're going to like it.
The lolcow iceberg.
Can't give much more detail than that. It's a top secret project.
Okay, well, I'm going to call it a couple things before we leave because I have...
We have super chats.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
I also need to call out, we have 2 sponsors too. Did you know that? They're amazing sponsors. Lycan's about to send them to me. One of them is Ground News. Do you know what Ground News is?
Ground News is a service that allows you to get information from both sides of the political spectrum, see how biased they are, and understand political biases going into whatever topic so you can be the most informed.
That's amazing. That's true. You can find the topic. You can see videos from the left or articles from the left, articles from the right. Check out ground.news or check.
You can see the background of the outlet.
Yeah. What?
You can see the background of the outlet that's reporting it.
Yeah.
On ground.news.
Yeah, on check.ground.news
check.ground.news/
Bridges Podcast.
Bridges Podcast.
Link is below.
Great code.
And then we also have a sponsor from, I don't want to say the name. Was it Skillshare? Did I say the wrong name? I bet I just did. Oh, it wasn't. It is from Skillshare. If you want to learn how to make YouTube videos and be awesome, like Tom,
like us,
yeah, or like me, and you don't have the money to join Andrew Tate or Sneako's, Big Baller Video Society or whatever scam programs they're selling, check out Skillshare. You only have to pay $10 a month. You gain access to a lot of masterclass videos, ability to learn skills, which is the things you do learn. And the link to that will be below the video. Thanks for checking that out. Both of them are supporting the program. I'm pursuing heavily. There's one more sponsor slot, guys. It's either going to be Obsidian or Soylent, okay? One of you guys have to come after me, okay?
Soylent,
I drink a lot of
please.
Soylent.
Oh my God.
Okay, and I also
need to get that.
do a lot of Obsidian. Yeah, I'm the perfect soy boy,
That would
okay?
be so cool.
Yeah, I'll dye my hair. No, I won't. But yeah, one of those two, we're coming after you. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Yeah, I will catch you guys later. Have fun.
Peace out. Dr. N reporting for duty.
Dr. N?
Nicaragua.
Oh. Are we still live? Yes. Cool. That's a great country. Do you know where it is?
South America.
Close. Like the right hemisphere.
Africa?
No, it's in Australia.
Nicaragua is in... No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's
You don't know that? Are you serious?
Australia is its own country.
Why are you hesitating?
Because you don't make any fucking sense. It's not in Australia.
You think it's in South America?
Yeah,
I'm
actually,
Africa?
no, it is South America because my merch guy is Nicaraguan.
And so that means he's South American?
Well, he's like Mexican or something, kind of.
Oh, so not Central America?
It's South.
Are we still live?
Yes.
Wow.
Ready to go?
Yeah, we're good. Get me out of here.
The news is divided. Ground News puts it back together with coverage from thousands of outlets around the world in one place. So you can spot sensational reporting, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. Beside every headline, you'll see who owns the source, how reliable it is, and if they have a political bias. Multiple perspectives side by side, giving you a well-rounded view of today's biggest stories. Visit ground.news to learn more.